Chapter 3193. The Life and Death Battlefield. Those who participated in it would fight to the death. At this moment, the whole place was silent. Everyone realized that the young man in the creation realm was serious about dying. Even the sage-like Tiansheng couldn't help but frown. Was there really a creation realm cultivator who was tired of living? On the other hand, a cultivator who could reach the creation realm shouldn't be so stupid. Old Gu, be careful, Tiansheng reminded Lin's son. Gu Caoji was stunned. Did old demon think that the little guy in the creation realm was dangerous? What a joke. When he was about to say something, a strange power of rules emerged and shrouded him. The next moment, Gu Caoji appeared on the life and death battlefield. At the same time, Lin's son also appeared, facing Gu Caoji from a distance. Swish! All eyes were on the two people on the life and death battlefield. Once they entered the life and death battlefield, they had to fight to the death. During this period of time, no one else had the chance to interfere, nor could they interfere. Life or death, it all depended on whose battle prowess was stronger. Alas, I participated in the Life Lotus world for many eras, but I've never seen a life and death duel like today. Why would a creation realm cultivator want to die? The white-haired old woman sighed, puzzled. The other old monsters couldn't figure it out either. They all had different expressions on their faces. Old man, can Lin Sun win? Mountain Wind Path Master couldn't help asking. Whether he can or not, he's already on the life and death battlefield. Just wait and see. Xingjiang Gorge said calmly. I'm not as open-minded as you. Mountain Wind Path Master said grumpily. Fu Nanli reminded everyone. We have to be prepared in advance. When the life and death duel is over, we can't let others take the opportunity to hurt Lin's son. Old Fu, are you so confident that Lin's son can win? Mountain Wind Path Master and Xiao He were both surprised. Of course. Fu Nanli answered without thinking. At this moment, in the life and death battlefield, there was an obscure roar. Then, the power of rules that covered Lin's son and Gu Caoji dissipated. Both of them regained their freedom. Gu Caoji couldn't wait any longer and attacked immediately. Little guy, go to hell. The shout was like a clap of thunder, resounding through the 9 heavens. His skin was dark, and he had a rugged appearance. At this moment, when he attacked, his figure that was mighty like a mountain rumbled as it emanated a boundlessly dazzling glow of the Tao, and it was golden and dazzling like surging lava. The instant that boundless realm aura spread out, it caused the hearts of many old freaks outside the battlefield to tremble. Gu Caoji, an old monster that had overcome 5 great silence lifeless tribulations and was born in the Devil era. He possessed a ruthless nature and slaughtered innumerable people. He was like an old devil. As soon as he moved, he directly slapped Lin Sun across the air. Boom! The golden hand, which looked like boiling lava, came out of the sky. At that moment, it was as if hundreds of thousands of volcanoes were rising in the sky, controlled by the golden hand and smashed towards Lin's son. People couldn't bear to look at the ferocity and power of Lin's son. They all imagined the scene of Lin's son being incinerated and turned into ashes. Because this level of power, forget about creation realm, even minor boundless realm figures could not withstand it either. At this moment, the hearts of the Mountain Wind Tao Lord and Xiao He clenched tightly. On the 4 divisions heavenly pass, Tiansheng, old Demon Shu, Tu Buku, and the others all sneered, under the watchful eyes of countless people. However, Lin Sun shook his head slightly as if he was a little disappointed. Boom! He casually slapped out. His palm struck out. The obscure ultimacy of Nirvana rose and condensed into a palm print, soaring across the sky. Boom! The 2 palm prints collided fiercely. Instantly, the sky was filled with lava and flames, and the rumbling sound was endless. People were stunned. The scene they expected did not happen. On the contrary, the terrifying power of Gu Caoji's palm was easily resolved by Lin's son. The white-haired old woman who was sighing with emotion before was stunned, and she revealed a look of disbelief. The other old freaks present were also dumbfounded. He blocked it. Our young friend Lin's combat strength really can't be measured by common sense. The originally nervous mountain wind Tao Lord became excited, and his eyes lit up. Even Xiao he heaved a long sigh of relief. Only Xinjiang Gorge and Fu Nanli remained calm. Anyone who had witnessed Lin Sun's fierce battle with Heartpot and others would know that the scene in front of them was really ordinary. On the 4-division Celestial Gate, the smiles of Ing Tiansheng and other old freaks froze, and their eyes were filled with frightening luster. This young man's combat strength was really against the natural order. Before, they all thought that Lin Sun was courting death, and that he was ignorant and fearless. But now, this perception was subverted. If this is all you have, you will die in a moment. Lin Sun said indifferently. He was tall and indifferent. If he had said this before, he would have been laughed at and despised by others. But now, the way people looked at him changed subtly, and many people even showed a trace of curiosity and expectation. If this young man was not reckless, but had something to rely on, this battle might add a lot of variables, and variables were the most attractive. I've traveled for many eras and killed countless creation realm freaks, including some nature-defying freaks. But so far, no one has survived under my hands. In the distance, Gu Xiaoji's eyes were frightening, and he suddenly stepped forward. The power Lin Sun showed made him awestruck. He didn't dare to look down on Lin Sun. He didn't want to fail in an easy task, even if it was almost impossible. But what if it happened? As an old man who had dominated for many eras, Gu Xiaoji seemed to be violent, but in fact he was far more cautious and calm than he looked. When he felt something was wrong with the previous blow, he decided to go all out and finish the battle quickly. Boom, 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 boom. As Gu Xiaoji rushed forward, every step was like a chaotic thunder, and the terrible power of the great way spread from his stalwart figure. Looking from a distance, it was like a flame that tore through the ages, shining with boundless light. Cut! A burning red Taoist sword slashed out, setting off dazzling and magnificent clouds of fire all over the sky. Everyone could see that Gu Xiaoji had used all his strength at this moment. That kind of power could easily kill ordinary people in lesser boundless realm. At this time, a trace of blazing fighting intent finally emerged in Lin Sun's eyes. Rise! Lin Sun took out the abyssal sword cauldron, and the chi around him suddenly rumbled. Instead of retreating, he rushed forward. Clang! The red Taoist sword slashed down, shaking the abyssal sword cauldron violently. Then, a terrible torrent of fire spread out from the Taoist sword. It was violent and overbearing, and the aura of destruction was astonishing. Boom! Under the attack, Lin Sun's figure was pushed back by the terrible flames. Before he could stand firm, Gu Xiaoji attacked again. His aura was overbearing and violent. The burning Taoist sword slashed out hundreds and thousands of times in an instant. Layers of sword shadows and divine flames swept out like a raging sea, filling the battlefield with a terrifying aura of destruction. The aura of destruction was terrifying. Everyone's expression changed. Gu Xiaoji's power was too strong. Every move he made had the power to incinerate the sky. As he attacked with all his strength, the power became even more terrifying. If they were in Lin Sun's position, they would probably do their best to resist. The Mountain Wind Path Lord and Xiao he couldn't help but feel nervous again. Haha, this brat has finally suffered. Someone in the 4 divisions Heaven Pass chuckled. Is it funny? Ing Tiansheng looked indifferent, and a cold light surged in his eyes. He's just in the creation realm, but he forced Gu Xiaoji to use all his strength. Have you ever seen such a heaven-defying creation realm in all the civilizations? Everyone was silent, and their hearts were in turmoil. Yes, who had seen such a person before? No, the old monster who had chuckled just now stiffened, and he was a little embarrassed. What's more, Gu Xiaoji has already used all his strength. But look, has the young man been killed immediately? Ing Tianxing's eyes were fixed on the battlefield. As soon as he said this, The people nearby also keenly noticed that although Lin Sun was in an extremely dangerous situation and was constantly being defeated, it seemed that he would be killed at any time. However, he was able to avert the calamity by a hair's breadth. This made their faces full of surprise and doubt. Was this the combat power that a Creation Realm character could possess? I wouldn't be surprised if a lesser Boundless Realm character could fight against a greater Boundless Realm character. But if a Creation Realm could also do this, isn't this terrifying? Tion's voice was low while divine light seethed in his eyes, and it was extremely shocking. We underestimated this kid earlier. It isn't that we're ignorant and ill-informed, but it's because a monster like this kid is practically impossible to find in the civilizations of the various eras. So, his appearance caused us to lower our guard. At this point, how could those old monsters not understand that the young man whom they thought was courting death was actually a unique heaven-defying monster in the world? Fortunately, no matter how heaven-defying this guy is, he's now suppressed by Gu Xiaoji. If he doesn't have other trump cards, he'll definitely lose. When he spoke up to hear, a rare trace of pity appeared on Tianqing's face. Such a heaven-defying figure is going to die here this time. It's truly not worth it. He should have had a brighter future, someone said with a smile. If he's alive, then we'll be unable to eat and sleep in peace. After all, it's very likely that he'll attain the Boundless Realm when the next era arrives. At that time, there'll probably be no one who'll be a match for him in the Ocean of Destiny. Everyone else smiled as well, but their smiles were mixed with coldness. It was absolutely impossible for a Creation Realm figure to step foot into the Boundless Realm in the Ocean of Destiny. Not to mention that he would definitely die in this battle. So how could he talk about the future? At the same time, the battle in the arena of life and death grew even more intense. Rays of light shot out while rumbling resounded incessantly, and all sorts of phenomena of destruction appeared. The people scattered around the Quadrant Heaven Pass noticed the abnormality of this battle as well, and their expressions changed repeatedly. This kid is actually able to fight Gu Xiaoji, who's attacking with his full strength until now. Although he's being suppressed, there's practically no one in all the eras that can compare to this level of combat strength. These spectators were shocked by the strength Lin Sun revealed, and all sorts of thoughts surged in their hearts. On the other hand, the white-haired old woman was extremely furious. She pointed at Travel Sword Gorge and cursed. Travel Sword Gorge, you're sending such a unique and unparalleled Creation Realm young man to die. You're simply muddle-headed. First, I'm asking for monthly votes in addition. There's an extra update tonight, but it'll be a little late. Chapter 3194. Xinjiang Gorge, you've ruined a good seedling. Then, many people began to criticize Xinjiang Gorge. Think about it. With his foundation, he can reach the Boundless Realm in the Great Silence Fateless Tribulation. At that time, who can compete with him in the Sea of Fate? Alas, I didn't expect Xinjiang Gorge to do such a short-sighted thing. Those old monsters knew Xinjiang Gorge, but they didn't have much friendship with him. They could even be called competitors. But at this time, they were all angry because of Lin Sun. It could be imagined how amazing Lin's performance was. That was why they were puzzled and regretful about Xinjiang Gorge's arrangement of Lin Sun. Xinjiang Gorge didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he was scolded. Well, he had to take the blame for this for the time being. He looked at Lin Sun and thought to himself, Lin Sun, you can't be defeated. Otherwise, if what happened today gets out, Xinjiang Gorge will be condemned by all. Fu Nanli couldn't help laughing. This scene was so interesting. Even he didn't expect that those old monsters would feel sorry for Lin Sun. But did Lin Sun need to feel sorry? Of course not. So, the whole situation was very interesting. How dare you laugh? If Lin Sun is in trouble today, it's also your responsibility. Fu Nanli. The white-haired old woman's eyes were about to burst into flames. She almost spat on Fu Nanli's face from a distance, which made him feel embarrassed and stopped laughing. The white-haired old woman was called Crane Fairy. She had a fiery temper, but was very popular. She came from the Soul Era and was also a Boundless Realm cultivator with extremely fierce combat power. Fu Nanli didn't want to annoy such a tough guy. for no reason. In the final analysis, it was because Crane Fairy was fighting for Lin Sun, which made Fu Nonli unable to get angry at all. Old Xing, that guy's situation is getting more and more dangerous. You're not lying to me, are you? Mountain Wind Lord was very nervous. He had been staring at the fighting on the life-and-death battlefield. Seeing that Lin Sun's situation was getting worse, he was so anxious that he wanted to rush to help. So, Flying Sword Gorge had no choice but to explain patiently. Don't be impatient. This kid is doing this for the sake of tempering his combat strength. If he really wanted to fight with his life on the line, then that old fellow, Gu Caoji, would have been unable to hold on a long time ago. Really? The Mountain Wind Dao Master was skeptical. Absolutely. Speaking of this, Xingjian Gorge was also anxious. Lin Sun, you can't always be so passive even if you want to sharpen your combat power, right? If this goes on, you'll be fine, but I'm afraid I'll be spat to death by those old fellows. Just then, an exclaim resounded in the surroundings. In a life-and-death battlefield, Lin Sun, who was originally at a disadvantage, suddenly swayed, and a doppelganger of the Great Dao appeared, blocking Gu Caoji's fatal blow. A Great Dao clone that is no weaker than the main body. Immortal Lady He's eyes lit up. Interesting, this young man is too interesting. At the same time, the nearby old monsters were also shocked. How could they not see that the power of Lin Sun's doppelganger of the Great Dao was no weaker than that of the main body? Because of this, they were all surprised. Did you see that? This guy is obviously well prepared, Ing Tiansheng said coldly. However, this is not surprising. After all, who doesn't have a trump card in the world of Life Lotus? Sure enough, in the life-and-death battlefield, Gu Caoji let out a sneer. I knew you had a trump card. Unfortunately, you still can't do anything to me. Boom! As he spoke, he flipped his sleeves, and with a clang, 18 red Taoist swords flew out, turning into a sword formation that enveloped Lin Sun. The sword formation was so powerful that it caused a burst of exclamations in the field. Many old monsters felt their blood freeze. Red Sky, Great Demon, Sword Formation. This was Gu Caoji's trump card, known as the fiercest sword formation in the Devil Era. Really? What a pity. Lin Sun sighed softly. When a fierce battle evolved into a competition of treasures, it proved the limit of the opponent's combat power. For Lin Sun, such a battle could no longer sharpen his skills. So it was time to end it. Pity. Hearing Lin Sun's words, before Gu Caoji could figure out the meaning, another doppelganger of Lin Sun appeared in his field of vision. Then, with a bang, the Red Sky, Great Demon Sword formation he had launched was easily blown away by Lin Sun and his two doppelgangers. The 18 Taoist swords wailed and were violently shaken away. Lin Sun and his two doppelgangers went straight to Gu Caoji. Boom! Caught off guard, Gu Caoji was suddenly besieged, and his figure was submerged by the storm-like bombardment. The situation was reversed. This guy hid his strength too well. Damn, I felt sorry for him just now. It seems that I worried for nothing. It's really unexpected. There was an uproar in the field. Those old guys who were used to all kinds of battlefield scenes were shocked by Lin Sun's trump card. The unexpected was often the most surprising. But now, Lin Sun had staged an unexpected counterattack. Old Xing, is this the trump card of Lin Sun? It's really powerful. Even I didn't expect his doppelganger to be so powerful. Gu Caoji is doomed. Mountain Wind Path Master shouted excitedly. He didn't look like an old monster who had lived for many eras. However, Xingjian Gorge understood Mountain Wind Path Master's feelings. When Xingjian Gorge killed Heartpot and the others in the spiritual martial realm, he was also so excited that he lost control. The surprise Lin Sun brought to them was too great. Xiao He, who had always been silent, let out a long breath at this moment, as if a big stone in his heart had been removed. He felt relaxed all over. Damn it, how can this little guy's doppelganger be so powerful? Why haven't I heard of such a wonderful method in this world before? Gu Caoji is in danger. The expressions of Ing Tiansheng, Chu Bujio, Tu Buku, and the others changed. Gu Caoji also had a trump card, the scarlet firmament, great demonic sword formation. But it was obvious that such a trump card was no longer a threat to his opponent. This shocked and infuriated them. When they thought about how they'd unconsciously thought that young man was stupid to the point of ignorance and was courting death, their faces burned, and it was uncomfortable as if they'd been fiercely slapped. Don't panic. If that's all, it won't be easy for him to kill Gu Xiaoji. Moreover, with Gu Xiaoji's strength and ability, he might be able to turn the situation around. Ying Tiansheng said in a deep voice. Sure enough, everyone saw that although Gu Xiaoji was in a difficult situation, he knew when to advance and when to retreat. He wasn't worried that his life would be in danger for a while. Little guy, I admit that I underestimated you. But do you think you can win like this? Wishful thinking. Gu Xiaoji shouted fiercely in the mortal arena. His dark face was extremely livid while the space between his brows was filled with a savage and ruthless aura. As a boundless realm existence that had experienced the tempering of life and death for a long time, it wasn't that he hadn't encountered such a predicament in his lifetime. Moreover, he was extremely confident that he could turn the situation around. However, Lin Sun grinned. Wishful thinking? Then I'll send you on your way right now. Bang! At this instant, Lin Sun and the two Taoist physiques attacked with all their might. Their combat strength erupted like never before, and it pressured Gu Xiaoji to the point he almost spat blood. But he could still be blocked in the end. Gu Xiaoji laughed with ridicule. Send me on my way? Looks like it won't work. Right at this moment, another clone suddenly appeared by Lin Sun's side, and it executed a lethal attack at an inconceivable speed. Go! Gu Xiaoji was originally suppressed by Lin Sun and the two Taoist physiques to the point he couldn't even raise his head. So when the third clone suddenly launched a surprise attack, it completely caught him off guard. He was utterly unable to block it. Open! In an instant, Gu Xiaoji's soul almost left his body, and he howled furiously. He was completely in a desperate state, and his boundless realm cultivation seemed to have been completely ignited. Bang! An earth-shattering roar resounded. Gu Xiaoji's desperate attack was forcefully destroyed, and the rule power that covered his body suddenly exploded, bursting out countless light showers. Immediately after, his Taoist physique collapsed, and blood splattered everywhere. His primordial spirit couldn't even escape, and it exploded together with his Taoist physique. Rumble. In the mortal arena, the terrifying destructive rumble was still sweeping out, but Gu Xiaoji, a boundless realm existence, had already been killed on the spot. The entire place was dead silent. Crane Fairy and the other spectators were all staring blankly. The final scenes that happened were as fast as lightning, and they were all overwhelmed. They didn't expect that Lin Sun actually had more than two Taoist clones, so much so that when they saw the bloody scene of Gu Xiaoji being killed, they were all stunned, and their hearts suffered a blow. At this moment, Mountain Wind Taoist's mood was simply indescribable. His face was flushed, and he only managed to squeeze out a word after a long time. Fierce. Xiaohe's eyes were dazed. A creation realm could actually kill a boundless realm figure? Xingjian Gorge burst into laughter. Finally, Lin Sun was no longer the scapegoat. Looking at the old guys on the battlefield who were losing their composure, Xingjian Gorge suddenly felt an indescribable pride in his heart. Now, you finally saw the power of our young friend Lin, didn't you? Fu Nanli and the others also laughed. Among the people on the battlefield, they were the calmest, because they knew that Lin Sun had more than 3 doppelgangers of the Great Tao. Damn it! At the 4-level Celestial Gate, Ying Tiansheng, who had been very calm, also looked gloomy at this moment, and his eyes were filled with uncontrollable anger. Looking at the other old guys around him, they all looked extremely gloomy. Gu Xiaoji was killed just like that. The scene of his death scared them all, and they almost couldn't accept it. Who could believe that a young man in the creation realm could kill a boundless realm existence like Gu Xiaoji? At this time, Lin Sun, who was standing in the mortal arena, also became the focus of attention, and every old monster present was shocked. Add updates. Continue to ask for monthly votes. Chapter 3195. Gu Xiaoji's battle prowess is about the same as Ziju Wuji's. I might not be able to take him down with my main body, but I'll be able to kill him with 2 clones. However, I'll be hit by his final counterattack, which could easily injure me. Lin Sun thought to himself. The reason why he had revealed his 3rd clone earlier was so that he could catch Gu Xiaoji off guard and kill him, thus preventing himself from being injured in this battle. A strange fluctuation of rule power spread out. Then, Lin Sun's figure was teleported out of thin air, and the arena of life and death disappeared. The winner lived. The loser died. This was the duel of life and death. Young man, what's your name? Lady he couldn't help but ask the moment Lin Sun appeared in the area before the 4 celestial gates. Her eyes were filled with undisguised admiration. Young friend Lin, this is Lady He. Xingjian Gorge quickly introduced Lin Sun. Lin Sun, the heir of the core dimension, greets you, senior. Lin Sun cupped his hands. So you're that Lin Sun? Lady He was stunned. But aren't you rumored to be at the transcendent state? The other old monsters were also stunned. A few years ago, they'd received news that a successor of the core dimension named Lin Sun had wreaked havoc in the 9th heaven of the eternal world, dealing a heavy blow to the Zen sect and Shaman sect. This matter caused such a commotion not because of the power Lin Sun displayed, but because of his identity. He was the heir of the core dimension. He was also the lotus that the master of the core dimension had been waiting for. As for the rumors regarding the eternal lotus, these old fellows all knew about it. However, no one expected that Lin Sun, who was rumored to be at the transcendent state, would now be at the creation realm. Moreover, he just killed Gu Xiaoji, a boundless realm cultivator. Could it be that what the master of the core dimension said back then was true? Lady He and the others' emotions surged as they recalled many things of the past. So you're that Lin Sun. At the same time, Ying Tiansheng and the other old monsters seemed to have understood as well. They looked at Lin Sun with undisguised killing intent. Get ready for battle. Xingjian Gorge quickly transmitted a message to Fu Nanli and the others. Now, if Ying Tiansheng and the others came out, Lin would be besieged, which would be dangerous. Lin Sun looked up at Muddy, unyielding on the 4 Guardian Sky Pass, and said indifferently, "Just now, you promised to have a life and death duel with me. Do you regret it now?" The surroundings fell silent. Many people gasped. Was Lin going to continue the life and death duel with Muddy, unyielding? Looking at Ying Tiansheng and the others, their expressions changed. Who would have thought that Lin Sun was Gu Xiaoji's opponent before? The old man's unyielding face also darkened as he said, "Regret? What a joke. Do you think I'll be afraid of you?" If one were to really compare their combat power, Mu Unyielding's combat power was slightly stronger than Gu Xiaoji's. However, Nu Bukin knew very well that he would have to pay a heavy price to kill Gu Xiaoji in a life and death battle. But Lin Sun had killed Gu Xiaoji without being injured. This made Nu Unyielding's heart tremble. Therefore, even though his words were extremely domineering, he wasn't very confident. "Since you're not afraid, come and fight," Lin Sun said, not hiding the cold, killing intent in his eyes. Cold, killing intent. As he spoke, he waved his sleeves and hit the Dao arena tablet engraved with the words "Life and Death Duel" again. "Do you still want to fight?" Lady He and the others felt dizzy. They felt that their cognition had been impacted today. A young man in Creation Realm had just killed Gu Xiaoji, and now he wanted to kill Nu Byaku. If this was spread out, who would dare to believe it? However, compared with before, Lady He and the others were much calmer. After all, they had seen Lin Sun's incredible combat power and had a new understanding of Lin Sun in their hearts. Thinking calmly, they even didn't think that Lin Sun was reckless. "Isn't little friend Lin a little too fierce?" Mountain Wind Lord was stunned. He suddenly remembered the scene when he saw Lin Sun for the first time. If Lin Sun directly attacked him at that time, what would the consequences be? He just wants to help us kill more enemies while sharpening himself. Xingjian Gorge's eyes were complicated. He saw through Lin Sun's intention and was quite touched. This time, no matter what happens, we can't let Lin Sun get hurt. Fu Nanli on one side said in a deep and resolute voice. Bursts of strange and obscure rule power emerged, and the life-and-death arena was about to reappear. The atmosphere in the 4-division Sky Pass was extremely depressing and dull. Those old monsters were all gloomy, and their eyes were full of killing intent. Gu Xiaoji's death had already caused them to feel enraged and humiliated. Now that Lin Sun had issued another challenge, they felt as if their dignity was being challenged. Only Nu Byuku's face was stiff, and his heart was heavy. He wanted to slap himself. Why did he agree to this man's challenge so rashly before? Of course, he could go back on his words now. But under the watchful eyes of so many people, once he went back on his words, he was bound to admit that he was inferior to Lin Sun, who was in creation realm. It was also bound to ruin Nu Byuku's reputation. For a moment, Nu Byuku felt that he was in a dilemma. At this moment, boom, the life and death arena appeared in the air. Then, two figures, wrapped by the mysterious and obscure rule power, appeared in the life and death arena and confronted each other from a distance. One was Lin Sun. The other wore plain clothes and was cultured and refined, and he seemed like a handsome Confucian scholar that was well-read and possessed an extraordinary bearing. But he was not Nu Byuku. Seeing this scene, Lin Sun was slightly stunned, and the faces of Xinjiang Gorge all changed. Even Nu Byuku himself was stunned for a moment, and then he looked at Ying Tiansheng. He knew that this must be Ying Tiansheng's doing. Crane Fairy scolded, "Ying Tiansheng, as the lord of the 4-division Sky Pass, you used the rule of the Sky Pass to cheat. Don't you feel ashamed?" Other old monsters also showed disdain. Ying Tiansheng, who looked like a sage and kind, said indifferently, "Crane Fairy, since I am the lord of the 4-division Sky Pass, I can naturally arrange people to fight according to my will. If you don't agree, you can come and fight." No one could refute his words. This was the advantage of guarding a heavenly pass. Life and death duel? Yes, but the Lord of the Sky Pass could decide who to fight. Young friend Lin, your opponent is the Hu Yong Demon Lord. Although he has passed 5 great silence lifespan tribulations like Gu Xiaoji, his battle prowess is not inferior to Heartpot. You must be careful. Xinjiang Gorge immediately transmitted. He told Lin Sun some information about his opponent. The Hu Yong Demon Lord was one of the top boundless realm cultivators of the Demon Era. He controlled the time rule, and his innate ability was Ashes of History. His Tao weapon was called the Wheel of Time, and its power was unfathomable and mysterious. In Ying Tianxing's camp, the Hu Yong Demon Lord was definitely one of the best. Even in the Sea of Destiny, he could be said to be fearsome. Knowing this, Lin Sun's heart couldn't help but boil with fighting spirit. An opponent no weaker than Heartpot, an unparalleled demon lord who also controlled the time rule. Such an opponent could only be encountered in the world of the Life Lotus. Young friend, you must be careful. Even Fairy He's expression turned solemn. Although she was dissatisfied with Ying Tianxing's despicable actions, what was done could not be undone. A life and death duel with Hu Yong, Demon Lord. It's going to be difficult. The others couldn't help but feel worried for Lin Sun. If he was unyielding, they wouldn't be so worried for him. But Hu Yong, Demon Lord, was different. His strength had long since been known to everyone in the great Tao struggles of numerous eras. Old friend, what should we do now? The mountain wind path lore began to worry again. Worry caused chaos. Xinjiang Gorge said, even Heartpot's desperate attack was blocked by young friend Lin. If he really goes all out, young friend Lin might be able to kill him. Sigh, I'm still very worried. The mountain wind path lord sighed. Haha, this kid will definitely die in this battle. Many old monsters in the 4 Sky Pass revealed bloodthirsty anticipation. They wanted nothing more than for Hu Yong, Demon Lord, to kill Lin Sun and avenge Gu Xiaoji's death. On the life and death battlefield, a long time ago, your master, the Master of the Heart, injured me in the struggle for the great Tao and almost caused me to perish. However, misfortune and fortune are closely intertwined. It was precisely because of that injury that I was able to tap into my potential and recover to my peak strength. Moreover, I've taken a step forward on the boundless Tao. Hu Yong, Demon Lord's voice was like the morning bell and evening drum. He was dressed in a scholar's robe, and he was cultured and refined like a scholar. He didn't have a slightest aura of a demon lord, but his words caused Lin Sun to raise his brows. This old fellow actually fought with his master? Lin Sun smiled indifferently. So, doesn't this mean that you have to thank my master for enlightening you? That's right. Hu Yong, demon lord, didn't show the slightest trace of anger, and he smiled warmly. So, in order to repay his kindness, I'll pluck this lotus that he's been waiting for. I'll tear off its petals and watch it wither. Isn't that beautiful? The meaning behind his casual words caused others to shudder. You weren't a match for my master all those years ago, and you're bound to be a match for me today as well. Believe it or not, we'll know in this battle. Lin Sun's expression was calm, and he was calm and composed as before. A young man at the creation realm was still able to maintain such a domineering and composed demeanor when facing a terrifying existence like Hu Yong, demon lord. This caused many people to raise their eyebrows. It was even to the extent that Ng Tiansheng couldn't help but sigh with emotion. How great would it be if he could use this brilliant lotus? Unfortunately, lotuses would wither and wither as well. Right at this moment. I think so as well. Demon Master Hu Yong laughed, his eyes filled with undisguised admiration for Lin Sun. After this battle is over, I'll paint a painting of a withered lotus and a withered leaf to commemorate you and express my gratitude. Chapter 3196. His words were unhurried and filled with boundless killing intent. As soon as he finished speaking, the power of laws suppressing Lin Sun and Hu Yong dissipated. Both of them seemed to have regained their freedom, and their auras rumbled and circulated. Demon Lord Hu Yong's sleeves fluttered, and a verdant brush appeared in his hand. He drew a line in the air, and a turbid scene of the end of the world appeared. The gods fell within it, and their corpses turned to ash. An indescribable aura of death spread out soundlessly. The end of the world finally passed. This was a supreme Tao art fused with the laws of time, and with a wave of the brush, it was a natural creation. The eyelids of everyone in Xinjiang Gorge twitched, and their expressions changed slightly. Hu Yong had used a killer move as soon as he made his move. This old demon was clearly provoked by Gu Xiaoji's death. The hearts of immortal he and the others sank. Generally speaking, it was difficult for the power of time to shake a boundless realm existence. This was because experts with such cultivation had more or less comprehended and grasped a portion of the laws of time. However, Hu Yong was different. He had already attained perfection in the laws of time, and the core of his pursuit of the Grand Tao was the laws of time. Back in the Devil era, Hu Yong had the reputation of the ruler of time. Just like the supreme Tao art he executed, the end of the world, it was a peak use of the laws of time. In the battlefield of life and death, Lin Sun formed a sword with his fingers and casually slashed out. Chi! A wisp of sword intent flashed through the air like a ripple of light. As the sword intent spread out, heaven and earth were torn into countless pieces like a canvas. The scene of the end of the world also collapsed. The entire crowd was in an uproar. Just like that, he swept away Hu Yong's killer move. Everyone was shocked by this scene, and they stared with wide eyes. Their hearts were filled with excitement, and their expectations for Lin Sun were reignited. Ng Tiansheng and the others couldn't help but frown. This sword is very profound. It contains the profundities of time, and it faintly resists my grand Tao. Interesting. Hu Yong's eyes lit up, and it seemed that this sword had aroused all the fighting spirit in his heart. Boom! His clothes fluttered, and light flowed around his body. His aura surged into the heavens as he waved the green brush in his hand. As the brush rose, all things were born. The stroke of the brush shocks the storm. Numerous boundless great rivers appeared out of thin air, and they seemed like the water of the 9 heavens that surged and flowed. The surging waves were filled with the vicissitudes of life, and everything in the world was changing within them, flourishing and withering, and life and death intersected. It was like the river of time had pierced through the barrier between the past and present, and it roared through the sky with the intention of drowning everything in the life and death battlefield. It was grand, vast and magnificent. Such an unparalleled aura caused Ing Tiansheng to be unable to help but clap his hands and exclaim in admiration. What an amazing technique! This level of attack was sufficient to make some grand, boundless realm existences lose their lives. In an instant, Lin Sun seemed to be in the vast ocean, surrounded by the torrent of time, roaring and surging in all directions. The breath released was full of unimaginable power. Lin Sun also felt unprecedented pressure from the dangerous aura that came to his face. No wonder he was a peerless demon lord comparable to the Heart Pot. His usage of the time law was unimaginably terrifying. It was far from what Gu Xiaoji could compare to. However, this was exactly the battle that Lin Sun longed for. He needed to temper himself in a life-and-death battle. Only in this way could he completely transform his cultivation and step into the boundless realm in one go. And the battle before him was what Lin Sun was most looking forward to. Swish! Lin Sun suddenly took a deep breath. His sleeves shook, and he struck with his palm like a knife. Boom! Boom rumble! The torrent of time that surged over was split apart by the bright and fierce palm force. The waves collapsed and rolled up 1,000 layers of snow. From afar, Lin Sun could be seen walking on the waves. His palm force was like thousands of meters long saber chi, crisscrossing and galloping above the torrent of the sea. His figure was tall, and he didn't use the 3 doppelgangers from before. He rode on the waves and waved his palm to split the waves. He was so elegant and transcendent. Furthermore, the power behind each and every one of his attacks was extremely terrifying. In the heaven and earth battlefield, the sound of explosions rang out continuously. The sea rolled and the waves surged, and it became more and more terrifying. But Lin Sun was like a sharp light that pierced through time and split the waves. If it was me, I'm afraid I would only be able to accomplish this. Some old fellows muttered with their hearts trembling. They didn't dare believe that Lin Sun, a creation realm cultivator, could possess such combat strength. The power of time this kid possesses is obviously extremely powerful. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to accomplish this. Some old fellows frowned as they analyzed, and they grew more and more shocked. Unfortunately, he's still unable to escape the sea of time. Some are filled with worry. The strength that Lin Sun revealed was extremely heaven-defying, but no matter what, he was still trapped by Hu Yong's power. In Travel Sword Gorge, they didn't say a word and focused on the battlefield. However, their hearts were like a taut bowstring, and they couldn't relax. For Divine Sky Pass was silent as well. Ing Tiansheng and the other old fellows were focused on the battlefield and held their breaths in concentration. Float and sink with the waves. No matter how great your ability is, you'll still be blown away by the wind and rain. In the life and death battlefield, Hu Yong, Demon Master, spoke leisurely. Along with his voice, the green brush in his hand suddenly changed. It became powerful and heavy, as if dragging an ancient divine mountain. On the other hand, boundless tempestuous waves suddenly arose in the sea of time. Raging hurricanes and violent rain rumbled as they swept out from the sea of time. Lightning bolts as thick as buckets rained down from the sky. The entire sea seemed to have turned into a doomsday. Lin Sun, who was in the midst of it, suddenly became embarrassed. Sometimes he was slapped by huge waves, sometimes he was swept by storms, sometimes he was struck by lightning, and sometimes he was covered by torrential rain. In just a moment, he was covered in injuries, and his clothes were stained with blood. The power of old Hu Yong isn't comparable to that of Gu Xiaoji at all. Lin Sun is in danger. The expressions of Crane Fairy and the others changed. The situation had become very obvious. Lin Sun was at a disadvantage and could be in danger at any time. Old Xing, Mountain Wind Master, was so nervous that he couldn't help but speak, but he was interrupted by Travel Sword Gorge. It's just a few injuries. Why are you so nervous? Just continue to watch the battle. Mountain Wind Master immediately shut up. He didn't know that Travel Sword Gorge was extremely nervous as well. When he looked at Fu Nanli and the others, they all had extremely solemn expressions. Bang! Above the sea, amidst the torrential rain, Lin Sun finally displayed the three Taoist bodies of greenwood, scarlet fire, and yellow earth, and he broke free from the dangerous and unpredictable situation in one go. Open! He shouted loudly. His main body and the three Taoist bodies glowed at the same time. They pointed at the heavens and the earth, threw the sea into disorder, shattered the wind, clouds, and lightning, and revealed boundlessly overbearing might. Bang! The vast sea of time actually showed signs of tearing apart in that instant. Everyone present was in an uproar. However, only Hu Yong, Demon Master, laughed loudly. So what if I fight with my life on the line? It's futile. He suddenly pointed the green Taoist brush in his hand. Bang! The sea of time suddenly seethed, and then a myriad of flames surged out. In an instant, it transformed into a sea of flames. The surging torrent of flames roared like lava, and it released the power to refine everything in the world. It was the terrifying might of all things. It was the flames of time, and this was Hu Yong, Demon Master's trump card. A single thought transformed the sea into flames. Rumble. In the life and death battlefield, flames covered the heavens and the earth like a tide, and the sea flowed and burned the heavens. Such power caused the distant spectators to break out in a cold sweat and feel a chill run down their spines. Lin Sun, who'd been on the verge of breaking free, instantly fell into danger after suffering such a blow. Even the three Taoist bodies couldn't withstand the full force attacks. The scene was too terrifying. With the sea of time, it burned the heavens and the earth. Hu Yong, Demon Master's tyrannical strength was displayed to the fullest at this moment. If this wasn't the life and death art, I really want to ask Hu Yong to spare this kid's life. Ying Tiansheng sighed with emotion. However, an unexpected scene appeared. Just when Lin Sun was about to collapse, another two Taoist bodies flashed out from beside him. They were the Platinum Taoist body and the Black Water Taoist body. At this moment, a cold light flashed in the eyes of Lin Sun's main body, and he howled, "Open!" Boom! The flames and the torrent of time that filled the sky suddenly exploded. The vast sea of time was shattered at this moment. Lin Sun and his five Taoist bodies also broke out of the encirclement like deities, releasing a terrifying aura that shocked everyone present. 5 Taoist bodies. Someone exclaimed. This kid has hidden his strength too deeply. Someone gasped in shock. Ha, good. Some even laughed excitedly. Mountain Wind Path Master, who'd been worried about Lin Sun, couldn't help but laugh. This turn of events was too exciting. Ying Tiansheng and the others' expressions froze. 5 Taoist bodies? This was completely out of their expectations. At the same time, on the life and death battlefield, Hu Yong, Demon Master's figure swayed. A trace of blood dripping from his lips, and a trace of haze appeared on his calm face. The destruction of the Sea of Time had also caused him to suffer a backlash. But compared to this, what surprised him even more was that Lin Sun had hidden 2 Taoist bodies. This was also something he hadn't expected. What a pity! Lin Sun sighed softly. Previously, when he killed Gu Chao, he'd sighed softly, but only after Gu Chao's death did people realize what he was feeling regretful about. But now he sighed again. Did this mean that he was going to use his full strength to kill Hu Yong, Demon Master? Thinking of this, the hearts of Fairy, He, and the others trembled. Boom! Before anyone had much time to think, Lin Sun and his 5 Taoist bodies attacked with all their strength. Pity? Don't worry, since I said I'd draw you a painting of the withered lotus leaves, I'll definitely keep my word. Hu Yong, Demon Master, said coldly. His expression turned cold, and his eyes flickered with a terrifying light of time. His entire aura changed, and shadows overlapped around him as flames surged. Before, he was like a cultured and refined scholar. But now, he was like a peerless demon master who'd reigned supreme for many eras. Swish! His sleeves fluttered as he waved the green brush in his hand. In an instant, the image of chaos appeared, and the power of time grew wildly in the dusky void. It gave people the feeling that the chaos was the old woman who'd suppressed the heavens, and the power of time was the punishment for slaughtering all living beings. The chaos was like a prison, and time was the punishment. Thank you, Brother Awadara, for the reward from the Alliance Master once again. I'll continue to add more tonight. Chapter 3197. A character that could rival Heartpot was destined to be someone extraordinary. Lin Sun had only broken through the encirclement earlier, and even though he had caused Hu Yong Demon Lord to suffer a backlash, it was only a small injury. The reason why everyone was shocked was because they hadn't expected Lin Sun to have two other Dao bodies. When they saw Hu Yong attack furiously and use his trump card without hesitation, everyone realized that the moment of life and death was about to be decided. Boom! The chaos was like purgatory, trapping Lin Sun and his 5 Dao bodies within. The power of time grew wildly like the blade of heaven, revealing its unparalleled sharpness. This attack was even more terrifying than the ocean of time. Lin Sun's eyes were as deep as an abyss, and he took a deep breath. His body suddenly glowed brilliantly, and a boundless rain of light gushed out as the door of exile silently appeared, and it seemed like a bloody mouth that covered an area of 3 kilometers. Boom! The punishing power of time was silently swallowed, and Lin Sun wasn't harmed at all. Soon after, as the power of the door of exile spread, it seemed as if it was about to devour the heavens and the earth. The purgatory-like chaos instantly cracked and collapsed, and was devoured by the door of exile. However, Lin Sun and his 5 Tao bodies had escaped unscathed. The old monsters couldn't believe their eyes. This was Devil Lord Hu Yong's trump card, but it had been devoured so easily without leaving a single drop behind. This contrast was too great, and it caused everyone to feel somewhat dumbfounded. Devouring the sky. Who are you to the eternal night, divine emperor? Hu Yong Demon Lord's expression changed completely, and he cried out involuntarily. The eternal night, divine emperor. Everyone fell silent. Many old monsters revealed strange expressions as they recalled the mysterious and dreamlike legendary figure that once roamed the heavens alone. It was rumored that the eternal night, divine emperor controlled fate, karma, and time, leaving behind an indelible legend for many eras. But everything about the eternal night, divine emperor was still a mystery that people took delight in talking about. But for Hu Yong Demon Lord who pursued the Tao of time, he understood the eternal night, divine emperor far better than ordinary people. It could be said that the eternal night, divine emperor was an insurmountable mountain in the Tao of time. You're already about to die, yet you still talk so much nonsense. Lin Sun shook his head and charged forward with the 5 Tao forms. In the previous battle, he acutely sensed that while the power of time controlled by Demon Lord Hu Yong was boundlessly terrifying, it couldn't truly shake him. The reason was that the laws of time he grasped was sufficient to easily disperse more than half of his opponent's might. This made Lin Sun realize that in terms of the way of time, the rule power that he had mastered might be far less powerful than that of Lake Demon Master. However, the power of the law of time that he had grasped was far superior to his opponent's. It was as if they were both swords, but one was a divine weapon of extraordinary quality, while the other was forged from ordinary copper and iron. The difference in quality was like the difference between heaven and earth. If it weren't for the fact that Lin Sun wanted to hone his own Tao, he could have easily resolved the opponent's attack by using his talent power. Naturally, it was impossible for him to be heavily injured in battle. But now, Hu Yong's shocked expression when he mentioned the eternal night, divine emperor, made Lin Sun realize that even someone as powerful as Hu Yong was destined to be no match for the eternal night, divine emperor in the Tao of time. No matter who you are, you'll die without a doubt. Hu Yong had completely calmed down, and his aura grew even more terrifying. The green brush in his hand rumbled and transformed into a translucent wheel of light. This was the true appearance of the treasure, the Wheel of Time. It was also Hu Yong's strongest eternal Tao weapon. In the next moment, the treasure soared through the sky. In that instant, It was like a sun formed from the power of time, and it emanated a boundless rain of light. It was gorgeous, dazzling, and peerlessly terrifying. At practically the same time, Lin Sun withdrew the abyssal sword cauldron and attacked with all his might. A great battle erupted. On the battlefield of life and death, Hu Yong controlled the wheel of time and transformed it into all sorts of inconceivable scenes of chaos. There was the dusk of doomsday, turbulent seas, hellish chaos, the cycle of life and death, and all of these scenes were extremely terrifying. At the very least, many of the old fellows present admitted that they wouldn't be a match for Hu Yong if they were in his place. However, from this moment onward, Lin Sun seemed to have become a completely different person. No matter how domineering and terrifying Hu Yong's attacks were, they were easily dealt with by Lin Sun. It was inconceivable to the extreme. Even something as formidable as the Wheel of Time was forcefully blocked by the abyssal sword cauldron. This was because he'd utilized his innate ability. The eyes of Travel Sword Gorge, Mountain Wind Dowlord, and the others gradually lit up while their nervous and depressed hearts became excited and excited. On the other hand, the expressions of Ing Tiansheng and the others gradually turned gloomy, and the shock and rage between their brows grew stronger and stronger. Swoosh! Suddenly, Lin Sun executed the Blade of Time, and it fused with the sword within the abyssal sword cauldron before slashing out. Bang! Even though the attack was blocked and dealt with, everyone noticed to their shock that Hu Yong's aura had suddenly weakened by 30%. It was like a portion of his cultivation had been stripped away. Even though it was minuscule, it was still shocking. The Blade of Time, Hu Yong roared furiously, and his eyes faintly carried a trace of imperceptible fear. How could he not be aware of the power of this ability? But what shocked him even more was that he was actually unable to truly contend with it with his current cultivation. Did this mean that even though he'd pursued the grand Tao of time to this extent, he was still far from being able to compare with the eternal night, divine emperor? If that was the case, then just how profound was the eternal night, divine emperor's control of the grand Tao of time? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Before Hu Yong could recover from his shock and rage, Lin Sun's main body had already charged over with the power of the Blade of Time. For a time, the life and death battlefield was filled with peerless white light that crisscrossed and tore countless cracks in the void. Meanwhile, Lin Sun's 5 Tao bodies formed a battle formation to trap and restrain Hu Yong's main body. Unable to dodge, Hu Yong could only face Lin Sun's main body head-on. Rumble, rumble, earth-shattering collisions resounded incessantly. Hu Yong was clearly fighting with his life on the line, and he attacked with all his might. But every time he clashed with the power of the Blade of Time, his aura would weaken slightly. Although the weakening was minuscule every time, when accumulated, it was undoubtedly fatal. These scenes were witnessed by everyone present here, and their hearts surged without end. They could see that Hu Yong's Tao of Time, which he was most proud of, was restrained by Lin Sun's innate ability. Otherwise, with his combat strength, he wouldn't be in such a sorry state in this battle. A moment later, Hu Yong's aura had already been weakened by 10%, and when this fierce battle lasted for a quarter of an hour, Hu Yong's youthful skin had darkened, and his ink-black hair was suffused with the color of frost. It was as if he'd aged countless years in an instant. As for his cultivation, it was already 40% weaker than when he was at his peak. Even a slight difference in strength could determine life and death. Not to mention that he'd weakened by 40%. The old monsters who'd been watching the battle felt their blood run cold. How terrifying was it for a boundless realm cultivator to have his cultivation weaken bit by bit? Who would have thought that the power that once appeared on Eternal Night, Divine Emperor, would appear on Lin Sun? Even Fairy, he was trembling. Ing Tiansheng and the others' expressions weren't solemn anymore, but livid and anxious. Everyone could see that Hu Yong was in imminent danger. Right at this moment, another shocking collision resounded in the life and death battlefield, and the illusory Blade of Time could be faintly seen flashing. After that, Hu Yong's body stiffened, and his eyes surged with unwillingness. He spoke in a hoarse voice. "I didn't lose to you." His voice was still drifting through the air when his figure suddenly withered like a tree that had lost all vitality. His leaves withered, and his body turned to ash that drifted into the air. The scene of his death caused a wave of exclamations to resound in the surroundings. Hu Yong was killed just like that. Hu Yong was one of the top figures in Ing Tianxing's camp, and old fellows like Gu Caoji and Mu Unyielding couldn't compare to him. He could be said to be ferocious and fearsome even in the various eras. However, he died in the life and death battlefield today because of the Tao of time that he was most skilled in. This was too shocking. A trace of fear appeared in the eyes of Fairy He and the others when they looked at Lin Sun's figure in the life and death battlefield. First killing Gu Caoji, then annihilating Hu Yong. If it were most of them, they probably wouldn't be able to do this. However, a young man of the creation realm like Lin Sun had done it. Who wouldn't be shocked? Who wouldn't be afraid? Good. The mountain wind, Tao Lord shouted. He was so excited that he couldn't control himself. At this moment, he finally dared to believe that Heart Pot had died at Lin Sun's hands. Xing Jian Gorge, Fu Namli, and the others all laughed. Only now did they realize that their clothes were drenched in cold sweat from the intense battle just now. Whem! A strange and obscure fluctuation of the laws arose, and Lin Sun's figure was teleported out while the life and death battlefield vanished along with it. Just as Lin Sun's figure stabilized, Ing Tianxing spoke with a livid expression on his face. "Everyone, let's go annihilate Lin Sun first." His voice was like a clap of thunder that resounded through the clouds. Ing Tianxing, Chu Bujio, Bai Buku, and the other old monsters all teleported and pounced on Lin Sun. In an instant, the smiles on the faces of Xing Jian Gorge and the others froze, and their pupils contracted. There is no doubt that the deaths of Gu Caoji and Hu Yong Demon Master had angered Ing Tianxing to the point that he didn't even care about the 4 divisions and wanted to kill Lin Sun right now. "Let's go." Almost immediately, Xing Jian Gorge and the others rushed forward and were about to teleport away with Lin Sun. The battlefield was in chaos. This incident happened so quickly that even Fairy He and the other old monsters in the surrounding areas were surprised. Their expressions changed abruptly. Who would have thought that the old monster Ing Tianxing would make a move just like that? More updates. Also, I'm asking about the time of completion of the life, and I'll say it again. Chapter 3198. There were 20 Boundless Realm cultivators in Ing Tianxing's camp. Even if Gu Caoji and Hu Yong Demon Master were killed, there were still 18 of them, including Ing Tianxing. Now that they attacked together, it was easy to imagine how terrifying it would be. Lin Sun didn't expect them to be so decisive and ruthless. They didn't even care about the 4 divine passes and just attacked directly. By the time he reacted, Ing Tianxing and the others had already arrived. Without hesitation, Lin Sun turned around and fled. If he was surrounded, he would probably die here today. Suppress. Ing Tianxing waved his sleeve, and a black bell flew across the sky. With Lin Sun as the center, the void in all directions was instantly imprisoned by a black power of rules. Lin Sun was like a fish frozen in water, his figure stagnant. Boom! But in just a moment, the imprisonment power was shattered. It was Xinjiang Gorge who arrived in time. He swept his sword across the sky and smashed the black confinement force at one stroke. At the same time, the terrible sword intent also chopped at the old monsters who were rushing towards Lin Sun in the distance. At the same time, Fu Namli and Mountain Wind Taoist Master rushed forward and attacked together with Xing Sword Gorge. Xiaoyi took the opportunity to escape with Lin Sun. Everything happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. Boom! Ing Tianxing and the others were obstructed by the 3 from Xing Sword Gorge. But after the impact, they were also shaken and staggered. The only thing that made them happy was that Lin Sun had been rescued by Xiao He. "Even if we can't kill that little bastard, we can't kill you old bastards." Ing Tianxing's face was full of murderous intent as he led the others to target the 3 from Xing Sword Gorge. If there were no accidents, the strength of the 18 of them was enough to kill the 3 from Xing Sword Gorge on the spot. But at this moment, immortal lady, he shouted, "Everyone, follow me to attack the four divine heavenly paths." Immediately, the old monsters in the surrounding area moved. This made Tianqing's face extremely ugly. It was easy to occupy a sky pass, but it was difficult to snatch it back. "Lady He, you're courting death." Although Tianqing was furious, he made a prompt decision to abandon the siege on Xing Sword Gorge and led his people back to the four divine passes. They heaved a sigh of relief at the Travel Sword Gorge, but they did not leave. Previously, immortal lady He and the others had acted out of righteousness. Xing Sword Gorge and the others would not just watch helplessly as immortal lady He and the others got into trouble. Immortal lady He and the others were still in the middle of their journey when they turned around and flew in all directions. How was he trying to snatch the four divine sky passes? He was clearly trying to create a diversion with the goal of helping Sword Gorge and the others resolve the danger. Tianqing was so angry that he almost vomited blood when he saw this. Originally, they launched a sudden attack because they were confident that even if they couldn't kill Lin Sun, they could make Sword Gorge and others pay a heavy price. But the actions of deity He and the others destroyed everything. At this moment, although the Four Symbols Heaven Pass was still under their control, it was obviously impossible for them to deal with Lin Sun, Sword Canyon, and the others, unless they were willing to abandon the Four Divisions Heavenly Pass. However, how could Tianqing and the others be satisfied? "Immortal lady He, are you planning to become enemies with us?" After returning to the Four Divine Sky Pass, Tianqing's face was livid as he spoke sternly. Previously, he was sage-like and kind, but now his aura was boundlessly violent. However, his aura was boundlessly ruthless, and his words were awe-inspiring. That thick killing intent made people feel suppressed, even from far away. "We just can't stand it. If it's a one-on-one battle, whether it's a life-and-death battle or a decisive battle, we naturally can't intervene. But you, old Demon brought people to deal with a young man in the creation realm. This is too shameless. Aren't you afraid of the wrath of heaven?" "Immortal lady," he said calmly. The power that Tianqing and the others possessed was indeed terrifying, but immortal lady, he was not afraid. She had lived for countless years. Even if she couldn't beat them, she could directly escape from the Life Lotus world. It was nothing more than missing an opportunity to fight for the ruins of wonderful Tao. It wasn't like she hadn't missed it before. Tianqing's face became more and more unsightly, and he was so angry that his chest rose and fell rapidly. A young man in the creation realm? Was there another young man in the creation realm, like Lin Sun, in this world, who could kill a top figure in the boundless realm? Immortal lady, he is right. If a one-on-one battle doesn't work, they can only resort to such a despicable tactic. Xing Gorge sneered. Then he cupped his hands at immortal lady, He and the others from afar. "Thank you for your help. I will never forget this kindness. I will definitely repay it in the future. If you, Xing Gorge, have a chance to occupy a heaven pass, we will definitely snatch it from you because of this kindness." "Immortal lady," he said with a smile. "Let's just decide the winner and loser." Xing Gorge laughed loudly. At this time, Lin Sun and Xiao He also returned. When they saw this scene, they both heaved a sigh of relief. However, if young brother Lin occupies a heavenly pass, then we'll have to reconsider. Immortal lady, he looked at Lin Sun with a smile, not concealing the admiration in her heart. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. On the four heavenly passes, Tianqing and the others' faces became even uglier. The deaths of Gu Caoji and Demon Lord Huyong had greatly reduced their overall strength. Demon Lord Huyong's death, in particular, was a heavy blow to them. But no matter what, such a lineup could still be considered to be extremely powerful in the world of the Life Lotus. As long as they stood guard here, ordinary people wouldn't dare to challenge them. 10 days later, the Fate Lotus Tao altar would awaken from its slumber, and the power of the law of destiny sealed on the altar would dissipate. At that time, they would be able to compete with the cultivators guarding the other 8 heavenly passes and seize the opportunity to enter the ruins of Tao. Therefore, Ying Tiansheng and the others wouldn't give up on the 4 heavenly passes at this time. Xing Jiangorge, cut the crap. Do you dare to fight to the death with me? Suddenly, a skinny man next to Ying Tiansheng spoke. He wore a black robe, had sunken cheeks, and a pair of huge bronze hammers on his back. His aura was fierce and fierce. Chou Fengqi. Just like Demon Lord Hu Yong, he was one of Ying Tiansheng's right-hand men. His combat strength wasn't inferior to Demon Lord Hu Yong. Hee, do you think I'm as stupid as you? Previously, Ying Tiansheng played a trick and replaced muddy, unyielding old thing with Hu Yong Demon Lord. I'm worried that once we enter the battlefield of life and death, our opponent will be someone else. Xing Jiangorge laughed, not hiding his sarcasm at all. Whether to challenge or not, he had the initiative. However, if they were to challenge him, Ying Tiansheng would be the one to decide who his opponent was. What's wrong? Are you afraid of my companions when you travel through the Sword Canyon? Chou Fengqi was unwilling and continued to provoke him. Mountain Wind, Dao Master rolled his eyes. Suddenly, he said, "You talk a lot of bullshit. If you're not afraid, then roll down from the 4 divisions Heavenly Pass. I guarantee that I'll fight you at the Traveling Sword Gorge. Do you dare?" Chou Fengqi was instantly speechless. If this was a life and death battlefield, no one else would have a chance to participate. But if he walked out of the 4 divisions Heavenly Pass alone, what if he was besieged during the battle with the Traveling Sword Gorge? By then, Ying Tiansheng and the others would not be able to save him in time. Chou Fengqi's silence caused a wave of roaring laughter to resound out from the surroundings. Ying Tiansheng couldn't help but blame Chou Fengqi. How could he still have the mood to quarrel with others at this critical moment? Now, he was laughed at for no reason before he could even have a quarrel with others. Let's get out of here first. Xing Jiangorge glanced at Lin Sun beside him and turned to leave without delay. Lady He and the others were not surprised. After all, the forces of the Traveling Sword Gorge were far less powerful than Ying Tiansheng and the others. The reason why Lin Sun could kill Hu Yong Demon Lord and Gu Caoji in this battle was that no one had expected that Lin Sun, a young man in the creation realm, could be so powerful. Now, everyone realized how terrifying Lin Sun was. At this time, even if Lin Sun still had the strength to fight, Ying Tiansheng and the others would not be caught off guard like before. Even if Lin Sun had a life-and-death duel again, Ying Tiansheng would probably do it himself. Taoist brother, are you just going to let them go like this? Seeing Lin Sun and the others getting farther and farther away, Mu Unyielding couldn't help but feel a little unwilling. Ying Tiansheng said coldly, "If I let you fight before, would you still be alive to ask this question?" Mu Unyielding's face flushed with anger. He knew very well that in Ying Tiansheng's heart, he was far less important than Hu Yong Demon Lord. If it was possible, Ying Tiansheng would rather have him die before. Don't be immersed in hatred. It won't solve the problem. What we need to do is to guard the 4 divine gates and seize the Life Lotus Taoist altar. Ying Tiansheng took a deep breath and said coldly, "What's more, in this world of Life Lotus, Xing Jiangorge and the others have far more enemies than us." He thought of the era of Buddha and the era of witchcraft. The strength of these 2 camps was not inferior to the era of Devil. 10 minutes later, in a vast mountain range, this place was hundreds of thousands of miles away from the 4 divine gates. "Young friend, you can rest here and recuperate." With a wave of their hands, Xing Jiangorge and the others helped Lin Sun build a cave residence and set up layers of restrictions around it. Moreover, they were all stationed in the nearby area. Lin Sun didn't refuse. He entered the cave residence and sat cross-legged. He took out all kinds of divine herbs and began refining them. In the previous battle with Gu Caoji, he wasn't injured. But in the battle with Hu Yong Demon Lord, he was severely injured. Although the injuries weren't fatal, they had seriously affected his combat effectiveness. Most importantly, after experiencing 2 extremely intense battles, his strength was already on the verge of exhaustion. Whoosh, Lin Sun put aside all distractions and quickly immersed himself in cultivation. As time went by, the news that Lin Sun had killed Gu Caoji and Hu Yong, Demon Lord, in front of the four Guardians Heaven Pass, spread like wildfire to other places of the world of Life Lotus. In merely less than a day of time, all the cultivators scattered throughout the world of Life Lotus had been alarmed, and it caused a mighty uproar. Chapter 3199. He killed Gu Caoji and Demon Lord Hu Yong at the Creation Realm. The Seven Stars Heaven Pass was guarded by a force from the Buddhist epic. Their leader was Du Feng, a terrifying existence who had gone through 7 great silence lifespan tribulations. When Du Feng learned about Lin Sun's achievements in the Four Guardians Heaven Pass, his snow-white eyebrows suddenly wrinkled, and he was really shocked in his heart. The news can't be false. So, although Lin Sun seems to be in Creation Realm, he is actually able to compete with the top figures of the major forces in this world. Beside Du Feng, the group of figures were also shocked, speechless. If we don't get rid of him, there will be another variable in the Life Lotus world. After a moment of silence, Du Feng said softly, "Fortunately, it's impossible to give this kid another chance to prove his Tao and enter the boundless realm in the Sea of Destiny. Otherwise, with his heaven-defying talent, once he steps into the boundless realm, the consequences will be truly unpredictable. If this kid dares to come, then I'll surely kill him." In the Five-Element Celestial Pass, the leader of the witchcraft era, Wang Xinghai, was seething with killing intent. This time, Lei Song and the others from the realm of spiritual martial didn't come to the world of Life Lotus. Instead, Lin Sun and the others from the Sword Gorge came. Combined with Lin Sun's terrifying fighting power, Wang Xinghai was keenly aware that Lei Song and the others might have encountered some unforeseen events that prevented them from participating in the world of Life Lotus this time. Even the Demon Lord Hu Yong was killed. This kid is truly unexpected. Let's wait and see. In the world of Life Lotus, there are many camps that hate Fong Siyuan Mountain like us. No matter how powerful Lin Sun is, he will become the target of public criticism. At the same time, news about Lin Sun was spreading in other parts of the world. The old geezers who had lived for many eras were shocked and could not remain calm. Of course, Lin's performance also aroused the killing intent of many enemies. How many epics has it been? Finally, an unexpected variable has appeared. The lotus that the master of the heart core spoke of all those years ago is truly something to look forward to. Someone murmured, filled with longing. If necessary, we should attack together and protect this kid. After all, we owe the master of the core dimension a debt of gratitude, and we must repay it. There were also people who muttered to themselves and made a decision. In the world of the Life Lotus, there were many people who hated Mount Innerheart. However, there were also many people who had received kindness from Mount Innerheart in the past. Now, with the appearance of Lin Sun, many old stories about Fonsa Mountain were brought back to people's attention. Some people revealed their killing intent and wanted to kill Lin Sun as soon as possible. There were also some who were grateful for the master of the heart core's kindness and secretly decided to protect Lin Sun. It was to the extent that it caused the situation to instantly become even more turbulent, and undercurrents surged while great waves surged. As the news spread, many terrifying figures were attracted to the Four Divisions Heaven Pass. Most of them came for Lin Sun, but some tried to snatch the four-phase divine light, which brought great pressure to Ying Tiansheng and others who guarded the four-phase divine pass. They didn't expect that the commotion caused by Lin Sun would actually cause the place they guarded to suffer an impact, causing the situation to become tense. After all, practically all the people that were participating in the Life Lotus world were old freaks that had lived for countless years, and every single one of them had legendary experiences that were moving to tears. Every single one of them was a boundless realm powerhouse that walked the heavens and experienced the ups and downs of eras. When these tyrannical figures gathered in a world, it was imaginable how dangerous and terrifying it would be. Ying Tiansheng could be called a top powerhouse among the boundless realm, but he didn't dare to say that he could guard a heaven pass by himself. Similarly, the situation was the same for others. It was destined that it would be difficult to survive in the Life Lotus world if they fought alone. Therefore, forming a camp and acting together became everyone's choice. In the Life Lotus world, the strength of Ng Tianqing's group could be called the top level in terms of camp forces. Under such circumstances, Ng Tianqing's group didn't have to worry about fighting and killing in the short term. Time flew by. Soon, 3 days had passed. In the cave residence, Lin Sun woke up from meditation and frowned slightly. Why can't I prove my Tao? Is it because I haven't experienced enough fighting and tempering? In the past 3 days, Lin Sun's injuries had long recovered. He could clearly feel that after the battle with Gu Caoji and Hu Yong Demon Master, he had also benefited a lot, and his combat strength had improved a little. But there was still no sign of him breaking through to the Tao. Soon, Lin Sun shook his head. There were still 800 years until the calamity of an era. Even if a life lotus of Tao was born every 20 years, there were still 40 chances to enter the life lotus world to fight. To Lin Sun, as long as he was alive, there were bound to be more and more opportunities to fight and kill. 800 years was enough for him to attack the boundless Tao. The improvement in my combat strength means that there's still room for me to continue tempering and improving my strength. It's not really perfect yet. If I want to test where the real perfect combat strength is, I can only fight. As he pondered, Lin Sun had already walked out of the cave residence. Your injuries have healed? When they saw Lin Sun's figure appear, the people guarding the nearby area all stood up. Lin Sun smiled and nodded, then asked, Seniors, where are we going next? Xingjian Gorge said, We've already analyzed it before. I'm afraid that the problem of your combat strength has already spread throughout the Life Lotus world. This means that no matter where you appear, once you're targeted by the enemy, you're bound to become a target for everyone. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes and nodded. However, we're not here to fight for the opportunity to go to the ruins of Tao, so there's no need to worry about it. Xingjian Gorge smiled. Mountain Windpath Lord, Xiao He, and I have already discussed it. We've decided to fight with you for the rest of the time and protect you. Fu Nanli also smiled. As long as you can prove the boundless Tao, we won't have to worry about the opportunity to fight for the opportunity to go to the ruins of Tao. Not bad, not bad. Mountain Windpath Lord nodded. In the martial epoch, only he, Xiao He, Old Bai Zhe, and Old Mu were left. With their strength, unless they chose to join the camp of other forces, it was impossible for them to seize a heaven pass in the next 800 years. Naturally, it was impossible for them to seize the opportunity to go to the ruins of Tao. Moreover, because they were regarded as enemies by Tiansheng and others, as long as they entered the Life Lotus world, the situation would become extremely dangerous. Under such circumstances, it was undoubtedly the best choice to cooperate with Lin Sun and others. Mountain Windpath Lord and Xiao He were also impressed by Lin Sun's combat strength. They all knew very well that if Lin Sun could prove the boundless Tao one day, the pattern of the Life Lotus world was destined to be subverted. And this was exactly what they were looking forward to. Knowing Xingjian Gorge's decision, Lin Sun couldn't help but be moved, and his heart was filled with warmth. He took a deep breath, cupped his hands, and said, Thank you, seniors. How can you be so polite? Xingjian Gorge glared at Lin Sun angrily. The others couldn't help laughing. Let go to the four guardians' heaven pass again. Xingjian Gorge waved his hand. This was what they had discussed before. Ng Tianqing's lineup was indeed extremely powerful, but as long as they didn't choose the life-and-death duel, Lin Sun didn't have to worry about his life. And Lin Sun finally knew that according to Xingjian Gorge's plan, they wanted him to fight with the life-and-death duel. In the life-and-death duel, once one party was in danger of life, he would be removed out by the power of rules of the battlefield. In this way, even if Ng Tiansheng fought Lin Sun in person, he wouldn't have a chance to kill him. However, there was a drawback of the life-and-death duel. Although it didn't determine life and death, in the past, many practitioners who participated in the challenge were seriously injured in the battle, so that the foundation of the Tao suffered irreparable damage. This was the danger of participating in the life-and-death duel. Immediately, they started to move towards the direction of the Four Guardians' Heaven Pass. This time, if Ing Tiansheng would rather give up the 4 guardians heaven pass to deal with us, don't panic. We will take action immediately and escape with you. On the way, Xing Jian Gorge said, if we really encounter a fatal threat, we can escape directly from the Life Lotus world. The way to escape from the Life Lotus world in advance was very simple. Crushing the life bead of Tao worn on one's body could tear open a space portal to the outside world and escape from the Life Lotus world. But it was worth mentioning that there was still a possibility of being killed in this way. After all, if one was besieged and his life was hanging by a thread, he might not have a chance to escape even if he tore open a way to escape. However, this was the safest way. However, according to my speculation, Ing Tiansheng and the others won't give up the 4 guardians heaven pass until they can't bear it anymore. In short, we just need to be fully prepared and act according to the situation. Xing Jian Gorge warned. As they talked, they could already see the lofty outline of the 4 guardians heaven pass in the distance. What? Xing Jian Gorge and the others are here again. Look, everyone. That's Lin Sun, the successor of Fong Siyuan. 4 days ago, he killed Hu Yong Demon Lord here. His combat power is absolutely unparalleled in the world. Is he Lin Sun? He's really in the creation realm. Just like a few days ago, there were many old monsters around the 4 guardians heaven pass. When Lin Sun and the others appeared in the distance, they were immediately captured by them. For a moment, there was a commotion in the field. Many people looked at Lin Sun at the same time. Those old bastards from Xing Jian Gorge brought the little bastard Lin Sun here again. At the same time, in the 4 guardians heaven pass, someone's face darkened and he gritted his teeth. Ing Tiansheng, Tu Unku, Chu Bujio, and others couldn't help frowning, and an inexplicable anger surged in their hearts. They hadn't even gone to seek revenge, but Lin Sun took the initiative to come again. Did they intend to repeat what they did that day and challenge them? If that was really the case, then it was simply insane. Chapter 3200. 4 days ago, Lin Sun killed Gu, Xiaoji, and Hu Yong Demon Lord in front of the 4 guardians heaven pass. On that day, the news spread and caused a stir in the world of Life Lotus. Today, 4 days later, Lin Sun appeared in front of the 4 guardians heaven pass with Xing Jian Gorge and others, which caused a sensation. Xing Jian Gorge, what are you doing here? Someone couldn't help asking. Xing Jian Gorge smiled and said, to challenge, of course. There was another commotion in the field. The man asked again, is Lin Sun going to have a life-and-death duel? Haha, old demon, Ing has been on guard. Isn't it stupid to have a life-and-death duel at this time? Xing Jian Gorge looked at the 4 guardians heaven pass and said leisurely, this time, let's decide the winner. Decide the winner. Hearing this, many people secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Decide the winner? Ha! Someone sneered in the 4 guardians heaven pass. If there was a life-and-death duel, whoever won 3 games in a row could take control of the pass. If Lin Sun won another game last time, he could enter the 4 guardians heaven pass and become the master of this pass. But if there was a life-and-death duel, one needed to win 6 games in a row to take control of the pass. Moreover, there would be no life and death in the life-and-death duel, which meant there would be no death. Therefore, those old monsters in the 4 guardians heaven pass were relieved after knowing the purpose of Lin Sun's visit. However, what they didn't know was that Lin Sun didn't come for the 4 guardians heaven pass at all. Xing Jian Gorge, do you know how many people in the world of Life Lotus want to kill Lin Sun? Ing Tiansheng suddenly said. Xing Jian Gorge said casually, if I guess right, there must be a lot of people. Ing Tiansheng said expressionlessly. Then why do you still show up here with him? Aren't you afraid that some enemies will come and kill you all? Xing Jian Gorge laughed. If I were afraid, I wouldn't have appeared in front of the 4 guardians heaven pass. Ing Tiansheng snorted. Then I'd like to see how you deal with the danger. Lin Sun stepped forward and said indifferently, old demon Ing, do you dare to have a life-and-death duel with me? The audience was stunned. No one had expected that Lin Sun would directly challenge Ing Tiansheng. Ing Tiansheng was so angry that he laughed. Young man, you want to challenge me? You're not qualified. Lin Sun smiled disapprovingly. Well, since you're going to hide, It's okay to replace someone else. I don't care who the opponent is. As he spoke, his figure floated forward, and he struck his palm toward the Grand Tao combat tablet on the right side of the entrance to the quadrangle heavenly pass. Buzz! A strange light rain of rule power scattered. After that, a battlefield that was suffused with an icy cold and bloody aura appeared out of thin air, and it lay across the heavens and the earth. This guy is really bold. He directly declared war. How could someone who could kill Demon Lord Hu Yong be ordinary? Remember, you must never treat him as a creation realm cultivator again. There's going to be a good show. In a nearby area, a group of old monsters were talking and looking at Lin Sun with a strange look in their eyes. At this moment, the people in the Travel Sword Gorge began to prepare themselves. Who's willing to play a game with this kid? Ying Tiansheng said indifferently from the 4 divisions heavenly pass. Let me do it. Zhou Fengqi stood out. His figure was emaciated, and he wore a black robe. His cheeks were sunken, and he carried a pair of enormous copper hammers on his back, causing him to seem capable and ferocious. For days ago, he'd challenged the Travel Sword Gorge to a battle, but he was ridiculed by them. I can't. Ying Tiansheng shook his head. It's just a matter of victory and defeat. It's not worth it for you to personally take action. It wasn't that it wasn't worth it, but he was worried that Zhou Fengqi would be injured. In their camp, Zhou Fengqi and Demon Lord Hu Yong were both his right and left arms. Now that Devil Master Hu Yong was dead, he didn't wish for Zhou Fengqi to act again, not even if he was injured, because in the next few days he still needed Zhou Fengqi to deter his opponents, and it was even to the extent that he couldn't do without Zhou Fengqi's help when he truly started to seize the Life Lotus Dao altar. But under such circumstances, once Zhou Fengqi was injured, then it would be extremely easy for mishaps to occur. This was not what Ying Tiansheng wanted to see. I understand. Zhou Fengqi pondered briefly before sighing lightly and withdrawing. Unyielding Mu. Ying Tiansheng looked at Unyielding Mu. Last time, Devil Master Hu Yong fought on your behalf. I believe you must feel guilty about it. Now the opportunity has come. Unyielding Mu nodded. I'll do my best. No, Ying Tiansheng said. Your goal is not to defeat him, but to consume his strength as much as possible and try not to be too seriously injured. Unyielding Mu's face stiffened slightly, and an unspeakable sense of humiliation surged in his heart. He was also an old man who had passed 5 great silent tribulations. How could he not understand the meaning of Ying Tiansheng's words? Ying Tiansheng clearly didn't think he was a match for Lin Sun, but such a fact made Unyielding Mu unable to refute, because his combat power was not as strong as that of Devil Master Hu Yong. At most, he was on par with Gu Caoji. But when Gu Caoji was killed by Lin Sun was not injured, was what Ying Tiansheng said wrong. No, but it was often the truth that hurt people the most. With your combat experience, you must know what to do. Go. As soon as Ying Tiansheng's voice died away, clatter, a strange and obscure fluctuation of rules shrouded Unyielding Mu's figure. In the next moment, Muddy Unyielding appeared on the battlefield. At the same time, Lin Sun appeared. Everyone's gazes turned to look at the two of them. Ha! Lin Sun laughed with a faint coldness in his eyes. I didn't expect that you still have the courage to fight with me. It really surprises me. Last time, he had declared war on Unyielding Mu, but Ying Tiansheng replaced him with Hu Yong Demon Master. Now, Unyielding Mu was the first to stand up. But this was not a life-and-death duel, but a battle of victory and defeat. Lin Sun's undisguised disdain and sneer made Unyielding Mu feel more and more uncomfortable. He said with a cold face, "Young man, there are many accidents in this world. I'm very worried that you won't live long." Lin Sun smiled without saying a word, or he didn't bother to argue. When the power of rules that suppressed him disappeared, Lin Sun moved at once. Boom! He jumped and moved in the void. His palms and fingers were like swords, setting off a vast and obscure sword intent, and chopped at Unyielding Mu. Lin Sun's domineering attitude surprised those old monsters who saw Lin Sun fight for the first time. Up! Unyielding Mu shouted, and thousands of purple rainbows emerged in front of him, crisscrossing and turning into 36 phantoms of the world, blocking in front of him. Although he felt uncomfortable in his heart, he knew that he was doomed to be no match for Lin Sun in a head-on confrontation. Therefore, from the beginning, he adopted a defensive fighting method. In unyielding Mu's view, he couldn't beat Lin Sun. As long as he kept on defending, it was enough to last longer in this battle. Boom! Boom! Boundless sword insight slashed down, and the world images formed from layer after layer of violet divine rays of light collapsed and exploded into pieces, causing a boundless rain of light to disperse like tidewater. This boy is as powerful as the news said. There was a stir in the field, and many old monsters showed excitement. As soon as Lin Sun attacked, they were all shocked by his power. Seeing unyielding Mu's fighting style, Ing Tiansheng couldn't help but nod secretly. Up, seeing that the 36 phantoms of the world were about to be completely destroyed, unyielding Mu waved his sleeve without hesitation. In the void, 12 bronze stakes appeared with a bang, each of which was engraved with mysterious and obscure totem patterns. They were like the backbone of the world, releasing an unshakable aura. 12 heaven-suppressing stakes. This was a group of eternal Tao soldiers, capable of both offense and defense. This old guy is using defense as attack. Is he going to waste time with me? Lin Sun raised his eyebrows and saw through unyielding Mu's plan at a glance. Then I'd like to see if you can block my attack. Lin Sun's eyes were full of burning fighting intent. In his view, unyielding Mu at this moment was simply a live target for him to attack unscrupulously. Boom! The next moment, Lin Sun's figure shone like a flash of lightning, rushing up, punching, slamming, and pointing out his sword. He released all his combat power. Under such attacks, the 12 heaven-suppressing pillars buzzed and shook violently. Light splashed, and the sound of Tao shook the sky. In the blink of an eye, the 12 heaven-suppressing pillars were sent flying in all directions. Unyielding Mu was not in a hurry. He made a gesture with his hands and used the supreme magic. Boom! Countless madly rotating thunder and lightning vortexes appeared, covering the sky and the earth. When the dazzling and gorgeous electric arcs flowed in the vortexes, they emitted a terrible and boundless destructive aura. Myriad thunder whirlpool. This was a supreme magic transformed from the thunder and water rules. It was full of destructive aura that was enough to tear the sky and devour everything. It was extremely overbearing. At the same time, Lin Sun's figure flashed. Greenwood and Scarlet Fire Taoist figure appeared out of thin air and rushed forward with Lin Sun. Boom! The thunder and lightning were all over the sky, and the gorgeous electric arcs were dancing like silver snakes. The destructive power made many old monsters outside the field feel numb. But this supreme magic was forcibly broken by Lin Sun and his doppelganger. Fighting force with force, they directly crushed away in the countless vortexes of thunder and lightning. Puff! Under the counterattack, unyielding Mu coughed up blood. His face was pale, and his heart was filled with unspeakable horror. Lin Sun's combat power was obviously stronger than a few days ago. Confrontation! Unyielding Mu didn't dare to think more and shouted. Boom! A mountain full of chaotic chi fell from the sky and pressed down on Lin Sun. Virtual Land, Forbidden Sky Mountain. An eternal Taoist soldier with a legendary past, which had trapped and killed gods and crushed a region. However, the next moment, the Shumi Forbidden Heavenly Mountain suddenly trembled violently. It was lifted up by Lin Sun and the two Taoist bodies. This scene caused countless people to be dumbfounded. Wasn't it too fierce? Even unyielding Mu was stunned and widened his eyes. How could this be possible? Here you go. Lin Sun's figure was like a majestic and dazzling god. He lifted the virtual land Forbidden Sky Mountain full of chaotic chi and smashed it towards unyielding Mu. Chapter 3201. At the moment when the virtual land Forbidden Mountain was seized, Muddy Unyielding suffered a backlash and almost coughed up blood. When his treasure smashed over, Muddy Unyielding's face changed. Go! He opened his mouth, and a blood-colored Taoist bead shot out, blooming scarlet flames in the void. Boom! In the collision, sound of the sky collapsing, the blood-colored Taoist bead exploded. Taking advantage of this gap, Muddy, Unyielding narrowly avoided the bombardment of the virtual land Forbidden Mountain. This scene made those old guys outside the field break out in a cold sweat, and they increasingly felt the strength of Lin Sun's fighting power. What other means do you have? Show them now, or there will be no chance. As he spoke, Lin Sun and his two Taoist bodies had already rushed to Muddy, Unyielding. Boom! On the battlefield, the flames were rolling and the sound of Taoism was surging. At this moment, Muddy Unyielding seemed to be desperately defending himself. He didn't want to hurt the enemy, but wanted to protect himself. Looking at Lin Sun again, he was like a king on a conquest. With a wave of his hand, the Great Way came into being. In a moment, Muddy Unyielding had coughed up blood, and his cheeks were pale. His situation was really miserable. All his supernatural powers and Taoism were smashed by Lin Sun, and he had been in a situation of being suppressed. Ying Tiansheng and the others were shocked and angry. Although they had long known that Muddy Unyielding could not be Lin Sun's opponent, how could they calm down when they saw Muddy Unyielding's miserable appearance? On the other hand, the old freaks outside the battlefield gasped without end and were utterly astounded. At present, Lin Sun only used 2 doppelgangers, but according to the news a few days ago, Lin Sun had 5 Taoist bodies. Didn't this mean that if Lin Sun wanted to win, he would have already defeated Muddy Unyielding, the old guy who had passed 5 great death tribulations? Kill. Suddenly, in the battlefield, Muddy Unyielding's eyes were bloodshot, and he rushed towards Lin Sun as if his whole body was burning. It seemed that he would die together with Lin Sun. But everyone present knew that Muddy Unyielding would not die. After all, this was the battlefield, and death was impossible. He did this just to exhaust all his strength to fight with Lin Sun before he was defeated. At this moment, there was a trace of cold, killing intent in Lin Sun's eyes. Whoosh, whoosh. He once again cast 2 doppelgangers, and together with the other 2 doppelgangers, they besieged Nu Buku. In an instant, Nu Buku's desperate attack was neutralized, and even his whole body was firmly suppressed. Meanwhile, the deity who had risen up boldly rushed forward, suddenly grabbing onto the Muddy and Unyielding neck. Bang! By Buku's Tao, body shattered, and his flesh and blood fell down. Only a primordial spirit was left. This bloody scene caused the bodies of everyone present to stiffen, and their hearts went cold. "You can't kill me," the Muddy and Unyielding primordial spirit hissed. He appeared very calm. "I can destroy the foundations of your great Tao," Lin Sun said seriously. His words made Mu Unyielding's primordial spirit tumble violently, and his expression changed completely. Boom! Lin Sun exerted his strength with his palms and fingers, and the horrible power rushed into Muddy Unyielding spirit like thousands of sharp blades. Muddy Unyielding screamed because of the unspeakable pain. Many people felt their blood run cold. This was too tragic. Who would have thought that Lin Sun would be so ruthless and want to take this opportunity to cripple Nu Unyielding? Even Ying Tiansheng and the others were furious, and their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. "I'll fight you to the death." Mu Unyielding's primordial spirit let out a crazy roar. Boom! The next moment, in the battlefield, obscure power of rules emerged and took away Mu Unyielding's primordial spirit, flesh and blood. Lin Sun's figure was suppressed and imprisoned, and he could no longer move. Obviously, the winner had been decided. At the moment when Mu Unyielding was about to die, the power of rules in the battlefield ran and saved him. This made Lin Sun sigh in his heart. Sure enough, it was impossible to kill an opponent in this battlefield. Mu Unyielding's ruthlessness also surprised Lin Sun. At the last moment, Mu Unyielding wanted to destroy his own primordial spirit. This seemed to be a suicidal move, but it was equivalent to using the power of rules in the battlefield so that he could survive. "Old Muddy," there was an anxious voice on the 4-image mountain pass. Mu Unyielding's primordial spirit dimmed, and the vitality in the broken flesh and blood of his body was destroyed. This miserable ending made Tiansheng and the others furious and pained. Clatter! Tiansheng waved his palms and fingers, and all kinds of light emerged, shrouding Mu Unyielding's primordial spirit and broken flesh and blood. In just a few breaths, Mu Unyielding's figure was rebuilt. However, his vital energy was extremely weak while his countenance was ghastly pale, and the severity of his injuries caused the hearts of the spectators to go cold. Mu Unyielding's foundation of Tao was obviously seriously damaged, and it would be difficult for him to return to his peak state in this life. In this world of Life Lotus, it was impossible for Mu Unyielding to fight in his current state. In other words, there was one less strong person in Tiansheng's camp who could threaten the opponent. Buzzed at this time, there was a wave of light rain, and Lin Sun's figure was moved out of thin air, and the battlefield disappeared. Lin Sun, you're courting death. Tiansheng's face was livid, and his eyes were full of cold hatred. You lost, you lost. Can't you afford to lose? In the distance, people in the Sword Gorge rushed to Lin Sun's side as soon as possible. Old Demon Ing, don't forget that last time in the world of Life Lotus, Old Bays and Old Mu were almost killed by you. Even though they survived in the end, they were seriously injured. This is called a tooth for a tooth and blood for blood. Mountain Wind Path, Lord shouted. Seniors, don't talk nonsense with them. Lin Sun said, when we beat them until they are afraid and desperate, they won't dare to be so arrogant anymore. The battlefield was silent. If it were any other creation realm cultivator who said such words, he would have been slapped to death. But it was Lin Sun, a young man who had killed Hu Yong, Demon Lord, who was a creation realm cultivator. At least, many old monsters in the field didn't dare to treat him as a small fry anymore. Young friend Lin, do you want to continue? Someone couldn't help asking. Of course. As Lin Sun spoke, he had already hit the winner or loser tablet with his palm across the air. The battlefield was boiling again, and people were talking about it in surprise. The expressions of Tiansheng and the others were gloomy. There were many times when they had the urge to rush out of the 4 divisions Heaven Pass to kill Lin Sun, but they restrained themselves in the end. The 4 divisions Heaven Pass couldn't be lost. Let me go. A handsome man in a green battle robe and a feather crown stood out. I'm the most suitable person to go. Qing Fei Hong. He was an old monster who had gone through 5 great silent tribulations, but his combat strength was extremely terrifying. Especially the Thunder Law he had mastered, which was praised as the supreme Tao of this Tao. It far surpassed the Thunder Law that others had comprehended. This person was also a capable general in Tiansheng's camp, and he wasn't inferior to Chou Feng Qi and Hu Yong Demon Lord. There were even many rumors that said Qing Fei Hong had hidden his strength, and no one had truly tested all his trump cards in every Great Path competition. Many people revealed surprised expressions when they saw Qing Fei Hong stand out. Tiansheng hesitated for a moment, but he finally agreed and said, "Don't hurt your foundation." Qing Fei Hong nodded. At the same time, Xinjiang Gorge also told Lin Sun about Qing Fei Hong's background and details. The battlefield appeared once again. Lin Sun and Qing Fei Hong faced each other from a distance. They were speechless, but both Lin Sun and Qing Fei Hong had strong fighting and killing intent surging in the depths of their eyes. Boom! Boom! When the power of rules that suppressed them disappeared, they attacked at once. From beginning to end, there was no nonsense. Lin Sun's figure flashed, and the 5 Tao forms attacked together. His original body even activated the abyssal sword cauldron and exerted his full strength. Qing Fei Hong, on the other hand, held a black spear that was surrounded by the horrifying black and red Thunder Law. The light it emitted was full of destructive aura that could shock the ages. His figure was straight, and thunder and lightning surged all over his body. His moves were also domineering. Millions of thunderbolts emerged with every move he made, making him look like the ruler of thunder. Boom! The two fought fiercely, and the whole battlefield was in a state of collapse and turbulence. Everyone in the audience held their breaths in rapt attention. Their attention was drawn to this battle. Gradually, people found that even though Lin Sun displayed the 5 Taoist bodies, they were actually forcefully blocked by Qing Fei Hong and didn't fall into a disadvantageous position at all. But at the same time, Qing Fei Hong couldn't gain any advantage. As a result, the battle between the two was in a stalemate, and such a battle was undoubtedly the fiercest and most terrifying. In just a moment, the two had fought hundreds of rounds. The scene dazzled some of the old monsters present, and they couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Qing Fei Hong's combat strength was so powerful that they couldn't help but be shocked that Lin Sun, a creation realm cultivator, could fight against Qing Fei Hong. This Qing Fei Hong has indeed hidden a lot of his strength. He's even stronger than Hu Yong, Demon Lord. Xingjian Gorge's brow was clouded. He had seen the battle between Lin Sun and Hu Yong, Demon Lord, with his own eyes, and compared it to the battle before him. He could clearly see that Qing Fei Hong's combat strength was stronger. Don't worry, we're still evenly matched. Perhaps this kind of battle is what young friend Lin desires the most. Fu Nanli said softly, "Everyone, we can't just watch the battle. We have to be wary of our surroundings to avoid accidents." "The mountain wind path," Lord reminded. Everyone nodded secretly. Fortunately, Qing Fei Hong has finally restrained this kid. At the same time, Ying Tiansheng also heaved a sigh of relief. Inexplicably, he recalled the scene when he first met Lin Sun. At that time, everyone thought that Lin Sun was courting death and was tired of living. But compared to now, people's understanding of this kid had already undergone an earth-shaking change. Even Ying Tiansheng himself had subconsciously regarded Lin Sun as a great enemy. Fortunately, this kid doesn't have the chance to prove his boundless realm in the Sea of Destiny. He can still be suppressed and killed. Otherwise, the old fellows of the various eras would probably be trampled underfoot by him. Ying Tiansheng let out a breath of turbid air. Chapter 32:02. On the battlefield. Boom, boom, boom. The Taoist light rumbled, and the power of rules spread like a raging river. Lin Sun and Qing Fei Hong have been fighting fiercely for thousands of rounds, and they have been fighting fiercely until the sky was dark and the moon was dim. As Fu Nanli said, this battle made Lin Sun feel unprecedentedly happy. Although the previous opponents brought him great pressure and even injured him, they didn't have the feeling of being on par with each other. Now it was different. Qing Fei Hong was very strong, and the power of rules he mastered was also very terrifying. His fighting experience was also incomparable. He was undoubtedly an excellent opponent. In the end, Lin Sun was immersed in a carefree and unrestrained state of fighting. He forgot about the world and all distracting thoughts, and there was only the raging fire of war burning in his heart. His attacks became more and more powerful. The 5 Taoist bodies and himself rushed to kill, and the means they displayed became more and more fierce and terrible. Little by little, Qing Fei Hong felt something was wrong. As time went by, Lin Sun's fighting strength was getting stronger little by little. The more he fought, the braver and stronger he became. Don't tell me this kid is using me as a whetstone. Qing Fei Hong frowned. If Lin Sun was allowed to continue to transform and improve in the battle, it was very likely to break the current situation of the battle. Thinking of this, Qing Fei Hong no longer hesitated and suddenly took a deep breath. "Well, I'll let you see my real strength." This was the first time he had spoken since the beginning of the battle. The meaning of his words shocked everyone present. Qing Fei Hong hadn't used his full strength since the beginning of the battle. Even Ying Tiansheng, who was on the 4 Guardians Heaven Pass, couldn't help showing a strange expression. He didn't expect that Qing Fei Hong still had hidden power. This guy really hid his strength well. A smile appeared on Chou Fengqi's lips. This was of course a good thing. Boom! In the battlefield, Qing Fei Hong's temperament changed. On his slender figure, mysterious thunderbolt diagrams rushed out, all of which were formed by the power of rules. Moreover, its might had risen explosively along with it. This caused a burst of exclamations in the field. Xing Jian Gorge, Fu Nanli, and the others all changed their expressions, and their hearts tightened. This damn Qing Fei Hong was really good at hiding. Boom! Qing Fei Hong, whose aura had suddenly changed, suddenly swept out with his spear. The lightning diagrams that had appeared around him all turned into a terrifying rain of light that swept out along with the spear. The attack of Lin Sun and the 5 Tao bodies was suddenly blocked, and then they were all shocked and staggered back. Kill! Qing Fei Hong didn't hesitate to swing his spear to kill. He stabbed out thousands of times in an instant, and the battlefield was filled with terrifying lightning spear shadows. Lin Sun and the other 5 Tao forms were immediately put in a passive position and were dwarfed. The stalemate from before had also been broken. This shocked everyone present. Qing Fei Hong reversed the situation with a single move, and the power he displayed was so great that it made everyone's hearts tremble. In this life lotus world, Qing Fei Hong, this old fellow, is absolutely the one who concealed himself the most deeply. With the strength that he displayed right now, he can even contend with the pinnacle, boundless realm existences. Someone had a solemn expression. If this news were to spread out, it would definitely cause a huge commotion in the world. After all, Ying Tiansheng was already sufficiently strong, and there was actually a hidden expert like Qing Fei Hong in his camp. If this was the fight for the life Lotus Taoist altar, it would be enough to catch his opponent off guard. Good. A smile appeared on the faces of Ying Tiansheng and the others. The death of Gu Caoji and Hu Yong, Demon Lord, a few days ago had already dealt a great blow to them. Just now, their unyielding and crushing defeat had filled their hearts with even more haze. But now, as Qing Fei Hong gained the upper hand, the haze in their hearts was swept away. Boom! In the battlefield, Qing Fei Hong's momentum was like that of a god. Every time the spear in his hand struck out, it would set off endless lightning rules, mighty and domineering. And Lin Sun's situation was getting more and more dangerous. This made the hearts of Xing Jian Gorge and the others tighten. Such a scene was something that they had never expected before. Fortunately, this is only a battle to determine the winner. If it were a battle to the death, the consequences would be severe. Xing Jian Gorge's voice was low. At this moment, he could only comfort everyone in this way. In my opinion, we have to be prepared. Once Lin Sun is defeated, he will definitely be severely injured. If someone takes advantage of this opportunity to make a move, it will be a disaster for Lin Sun. Fu Nanli said with a solemn expression. The Mountain Windpath Lord and Xiao He squinted their eyes when they heard that. Immediately, someone in the field exclaimed, "Everyone look, Lin Sun is turning the tide little by little." His voice spread throughout the field. In fact, there was no need to remind them. People who had been watching the battle had also noticed that Lin Sun, who had been suppressed all the time, had gradually begun to stand firm. It was as if he had adapted to Qing Fei Hong's brand new strength without reservation. And this undoubtedly meant that Lin Sun's combat strength was also becoming stronger. Otherwise, it will be impossible for him to have the opportunity to achieve this. What an abnormal young man. He's already at the great perfection of creation realm. How can he still become stronger? I've already said that this lad's combat strength can't be measured by common sense. The field was in an uproar. Those old guys who were watching the battle were all amazed, and their eyebrows were full of surprise. They had lived for countless years and seen countless unparalleled battles. However, he had never seen a battle like the one happening right now. Who would believe that a creation realm character could fight against a top boundless realm existence like Qing Fei Hong and turn the tide little by little? At the same time, the smiles on the lips of Ying Tiansheng and the others disappeared. Their eyes were filled with surprise and doubt. How could this damn little bastard be so heaven-defying? None of them could accept this. In comparison, the most surprised person was Qing Fei Hong, who was fighting with Lin Sun. Originally, he thought that this battle could be ended in a moment, but he soon realized that something was wrong. Because although Lin Sun was in a difficult situation, he could withstand every attack and resolve Qing Fei Hong's strength one by one. As time passed, Lin Sun was even able to stand firm and start a counterattack. The power released by Lin Sun was actually much stronger than before. Qing Fei Hong was taken aback by this, and his expression became solemn, which was rare for him. Kill. At this moment, Lin Sun's qi seemed to be boiling and burning. His eyes, heart, and mind were full of the purest and surging fighting intent. He didn't even notice that in such a battle, his cultivation was silently undergoing subtle changes again and again. It was as if he was experiencing the most rare tempering. His cultivation, Taoist body, mind, soul, power of the great path were all undergoing extreme fusion and sublimation. The profundity of nirvana had become the core of the fusion of all these powers. It was even to the extent that in the end, even the profundity of nirvana was undergoing some kind of unbelievable change. The power of the great path in his body, such as the rules of time, the 5 sequences of the ultimate, the rules of creation, and so on, seemed to be completely melting away and transforming bit by bit into a part of the profundity of nirvana, rumble. On the battlefield, the situation of the battle grew more and more intense. This could absolutely be called an unparalleled battle that was rarely seen throughout the ages, and it was almost impossible to see it in every era. On the other hand, Qing Fei Hong started to feel extremely great pressure. Not only had the situation of the battlefield been turned around by Lin Sun, but this balance was also about to be broken by Lin Sun. This caused Qing Fei Hong to be unable to help but be shocked and furious. He seemed to have been provoked and fought with all his might. Not bad, not bad. Xinjiang Gorge, Fu Nanli, and the others heaved sighs of relief in their hearts. Their emotions had simply fluctuated greatly earlier, and only when they calmed down at this moment did they notice that a layer of cold sweat had appeared on their palms. But right at this moment, Xinjiang Gorge, we've come for the sake of annihilating Lin Sun. If all of you want to live, then leave swiftly right now. Otherwise, don't blame us for being merciless. A voice that was like a thunderclap resounded in this expanse of the heavens and the earth. The space in the extreme distance roiled as a group of figures with terrifying auras surged into appearance, and the person in the lead was an old man in a black robe. He stood on the diagram of the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers while a green canopy floated above his head. Lightning coiled around his pupils, and every breath he took caused a myriad of Daos to resonate. He seemed like an eternal and immortal emperor. Jiang Yinshui. He was an existence that had overcome the lifespan tribulation of the second great silence in the era of the gods, and he was a peerless figure that could be called a big shot in the various eras. Behind him followed a group of powerful figures from the era of the gods, including the old antiques of the High Sun clan and the old antiques of the Ji clan. There were more than a dozen of them, a formidable lineup. When they appeared, the faces of those old monsters who had been watching the battle changed slightly as they realized that an unexpected variable had arrived. At the 4-division Celestial Pass, Ying Tiansheng and others were stunned at first, but when they heard Jiang Yinshui's voice, they couldn't help but laugh. Sure enough, after learning that the group of people from Xinjiang Gorge had appeared here, those who hated them came as soon as possible, and the formidable lineup of Jiang Yinshui and others made Ying Tiansheng and others even more delighted. In such a situation, they might have a chance to escape from Xinjiang Gorge, but no matter whether Lin Sun won or lost in this battle, as long as he left the battlefield, he would undoubtedly die. This unexpected turn of events also made the hearts of those from Xinjiang Gorge sink to the bottom. There was no deep hatred between them and Jiang Yinshui and others. At most, they had fought against each other in the previous struggle for the Great Way. But it was obvious that the other side was coming for Lin Sun. The sword-traversing Gorge and the others did not expect this. What are you going to hold on here? Jiang Yinshui and others came aggressively, pointing their spear at Xinjiang Gorge and others. They all knew that before killing Lin Sun, they must first kick away the stumbling blocks of Xinjiang Gorge. If you really want to fight with your life, we will die today. Maybe we have to drag some people down with us. If you don't care about this, you could get a try. Xinjiang Gorge took a deep breath and said word by word. His voice was sonorous and powerful. On the other hand, Fu Nanli, Shan Feng, Xiao He, and the others had calm bearings as well. Their figures were like rocks that didn't move at all. His resolute attitude caused many people to be moved. No one had expected that for Lin Sun, these old guys from Xinjiang Gorge would be willing to fight to the death. Well, I have to go on a business trip this Saturday, and I won't be able to write for about 5 days. Therefore, I can't add more chapters from today onwards, but I will make sure to update twice a day. Goldfish must save chapters in order to keep updating during those 5 days. Chapter 32:03. When a person risked his life, he would be fearless. And when a group of boundless realm existences risked their lives, it was enough to make the enemy feel afraid. Jiang Yinshui and the others came aggressively, but at this moment, they could not help but stop. Many people frowned. They came from the era of gods and belonged to the same camp. But when it came to a real battle, who would be willing to be desperately fought by the opponent? This was the world of Life Lotus. For any old guy, survival was always more important than anything else. Travel Sword Gorge. Even if you go all out, it is doomed to be difficult to save Lin Sun today. Jiang Yinshui raised his hand and pointed to the battlefield in the distance. As long as we take action, Lin Sun's mind will be affected and he will be defeated faster. And when the battle is over, even if Lin Sun can survive, he will be seriously injured and extremely weak. At that time, as long as any of you here takes action, you can kill him. You are right. On the 4-level celestial gate, Ying Tianshang said with a smile. How about this? You can deal with Travel Sword Gorge and others at ease. When the battle is over, I will capture Lin Sun as soon as possible and hand him over to you. Travel Sword Gorge and others' hearts became heavier. Previously, they had expected that there would be enemies taking the opportunity to kill them, but they did not expect that it would be a powerful lineup led by Jiang Yinshui. Travel Sword Gorge and others are in trouble. Seeing this, the nearby spectators sighed in their hearts. Originally, all the people present were attracted by the duel between Lin Sun and Qing Fei Hong. But the arrival of Jiang Yinshui and others changed the whole situation. At the same time, on the battlefield, Lin Sun's state of mind was finally affected, and he woke up from the state of battle in which he forgot himself. He sighed in his heart. Damn variable. Previously, he had a strong feeling that there was a sign of a breakthrough, and even had a premonition that when he defeated Qing Fei Hong in this battle, he was likely to achieve a breakthrough from the creation realm to the boundless realm. But who would have thought that Jiang Yinshui and others would come? That pure and selfless state of battle was also destroyed. How could Lin Sun not be angry? However, no matter how angry he was, it was useless. At this moment, he couldn't care less about what was happening outside the arena. The threat of that old man, Qing Fei Hong, was still there. Moreover, after Jiang Yuanshui and the others arrived, Qing Fei Hong also realized that the opportunity had come. He attacked with all his might, forcing Lin Sun to focus all his attention on the battle. Seniors, hurry up and leave. There's no need to worry about me. I'll deal with this calamity alone. Lin Sun's voice spread all over the field. Ku Xinjiang Gorge and the others turned a deaf ear to him and did not move an inch. This caused Lin Sun to be both moved and helpless, and he felt indescribably depressed in his heart. It was like a ball of fire was stuck in his chest, and it burned to the point of splitting apart. He took a deep breath and discarded all distracting thoughts. His top priority now was to defeat Qing Fei Hong. This was the only way to change the entire situation. Kill. With a heart full of anger, Lin Sun used all his strength to fight. This brat's mind has been affected. Qing Fei Hong sneered and fought Lin Sun with all his strength. Travel Sword Gorge, I'll ask you again, are you going to retreat or not? In the distance, Jiang Yuanshui stared coldly at Travel Sword Gorge. The others also looked at Travel Sword Gorge and the others. Under such circumstances, if Travel Sword Gorge retreated, Lin Sun would definitely die today. But if they did not retreat, then Travel Sword Gorge and the others would probably suffer. There did not seem to be much difference whether they retreated or not. Clang. However, Travel Sword Gorge drew out his Dao weapon with a calm look in his eyes. Come and fight. Beside him, Fu Nanli, Mountain Wind Taoist Master, Xiao He, and the others also drew out their Dao weapons with calm expressions. They looked at Jiang Yuanshui and the others from afar. In an instant, a murderous aura filled the field, and many people's expressions changed. Jiang Yuanshui's face darkened, and he said, "Everyone, just surround them. Our target is Lin Sun. There's no need to fight to the death with these old bastards." The people behind him nodded in unison. A great battle was about to break out. However, at this moment, a deep voice sounded from afar. "If anyone wants to touch Fong Sun's successor, they'll have to go through me, Sun Daoyan." The voice was like thunder. Boom! A black shadow, like a divine rainbow, broke through the air and turned into a towering figure. He was dressed in a black robe, his long hair fluttering in the wind, and he held a green spear in his hand. His power was domineering and unrestrained, and it shook the sky violently. Sun Daoyan, an existence who had survived 6 great desolation tribulations, and a mighty figure with the reputation of Heaven Punisher. In terms of combat strength, he was not weaker than Jiang Yuanshui and the others. When he appeared, everyone was shocked and looked askance at him. "Sun Daoyan, are you going to make an enemy of us?" Jiang Yuanshui's face was cold. "Back then, Fong Siyuan saved my life. How can I, Sun Daoyan, not repay him?" Sun Daoyan said coldly, "I said if anyone dares to touch Lin Sun today, I will fight to the death with no regrets." His words resounded through the sky. Many old antiques showed strange expressions. Travel Sword Gorge and the others were surprised. Jiang Yuanshui and the others came to kill Lin Sun, while Sun Daoyan came to save Lin Sun. Travel Sword Gorge and the others had not expected all of this. "Sun Daoyan, if you do this, you won't just be offending fellow Daoist Zhang's group, but I Ying Tiansheng." Ying Tiansheng coldly said from within the 4 divisions Celestial Pass. The situation was going so well, but Sun Daoyan had suddenly appeared. Ying Tiansheng couldn't help but be filled with killing intent. Suddenly, a soft laugh rang out. "Ying Tiansheng, have you always been so domineering? Why don't you come out and let's have a spar?" Along with this light laughter, an expanse of silver rays of light surged into appearance, and then a graceful figure in a green dress appeared. She had fair skin, a long and slender neck, and a peerlessly beautiful and dignified appearance. She held a tender and beautiful green lotus in her hand, and as she stood there, she was as dazzling as an immortal god. God Lord Linglong, a mighty figure from the Illusion era, hailed as the #1 in the Illusion Dao and extremely famous in the Sea of Destiny. The crowd was in an uproar when they saw her appear. Even great Boundless Realm experts had differences in strength. Both Sun Daoyan and God Lord Linglong were top-class individuals in this realm. Perhaps they had not undergone as many tribulations as Jiang Yuanshui and Ying Tiansheng, but the fighting power they possessed was enough to contend against Jiang Yuanshui and Ying Tiansheng. As for who would win and who would lose, that would only be determined after a life and death struggle. In short, there was a negligible gap between the fighting power of great Boundless Realm experts. Qing Fei Hong, for example, was someone who everyone believed to be on the same level as Xian Hu and Chou Fengqi, but when he revealed his full strength, they realized that he was even stronger than Xian Hu and Chou Fengqi. God Lord Linglong, based on what this seat knows, the old fellows of your Illusion era have either met with disaster or gone to the ruins of Myriad Dao. You are the only one left, right? Ying Tiansheng expressionlessly said, "If I were you, I would never get involved in such a grudge." "Alas, you're not me." God Lord Linglong faintly smiled. "You also came to protect Lin Sun?" Jiang Yuanshui asked. "Correct." God Lord Linglong nodded. "Also to repay the Core Master's kindness?" "Correct." Upon learning of this, Jiang Yuanshui and the others all had gloomy expressions. They had not expected this sort of situation. Xing Jinxia and the others had somewhat relaxed their heavy hearts. With Sun Daoyan and God, Lord Linglong present, the situation had undoubtedly taken a turn for the better. "But you and Sun Daoyan alone won't be able to change the situation," Jiang Yinshui coldly said. Jiang Mingshui said coldly. In the world of Life Lotus, there are many people who hate Feng Siyuan. The longer we delay, the more people will come to kill Lin Sun. Suddenly, Sun Dayan said in a deep voice, based on what I know, you, Jiang Yinshui, and the other old fellows of the era of the gods have no grudge with the core master's lineage. So why have you gathered so many people here today? This was something that many people present were confused about. For example, Xing Jinxia and the others had been surprised at first because they had never imagined that Jiang Yinshui and the others would hate Lin Sun so much. Jiang Yinshui was silent for a few moments, and then he said, "A few years ago, we learned that Lin Sun intruded into the ruins of creation and committed murder. The three great god clans of our era of the gods were all destroyed by him." As he finished speaking, his eyes were suffused with uncontrollable hatred and killing intent. Everyone present was stunned. Jiang Yinshui and the people around him were all seniors of the Jiang clan, Ji clan, and Hai Sun clan. Before the era of the gods had ended, they had come to the Sea of Destiny. But in this era, their respective clans had been single-handedly destroyed by Lin Sun. It was no wonder that they were so angry. This was the first time Xing Jinxia and the others had heard of such a thing. They looked at each other and inwardly sighed. This young friend Lin was truly fierce. Ha ha ha, delightful. Sun Daoyan laughed. This is how a successor of the core master should act. Delightful. Jiang Yinshui's expression was cold. Then we'd like to see if you, Sun Daoyan, and Godlord Linglong can stop us. Boom! Jiang Yinshui was the first to move, charging toward the distant Xing Jinxia and the others. Behind him, the group of Boundless Realm cultivators followed. Kill! Xing Jinxia, Fu Nanli, the Mountain Wind Path Lord, Xiao He, and the others attacked together. Clang! Nearby, Sun Daoyan brandished his halberd and charged forward. In the end, we'll have to fight. Let's see who wins and who loses in the end. A cold voice rang out as God Lord Linglong also took action. She waved the azure lotus in her hand, and countless azure blades immediately flew out like flower petals, filling the air. Rumble. As the battle erupted, the other old monsters in the vicinity of the four divisions' heavenly pass immediately retreated, unwilling to get involved in this terrifying, chaotic battle. Meanwhile, in the four divisions' heavenly pass, Ing Qianqing's eyes were blazing as he said in a low voice, "Everyone, the crux of this battle is not Jiang Yinshui and the others, but the outcome of the battle. Whether Qing Feihong and Lin Sun win or lose, Old Cho will personally take action and kill Lin Sun as soon as possible." Cho Fengqi nodded. Chapter 3204. Heaven and earth trembled, and the sound of Tao was like thunder. In front of the four symbols heaven pass, the melee of the boundless realm broke out completely, plunging the world into great turbulence. There were Tao soldiers shining with destructive luster everywhere, and brilliant Tao skills and magical powers surged like a tide, stirring the 9 heavens and 10 earths. The sounds of fighting and fierce collisions rang out one after another, and there were many shocking phenomena in the melee. Mountains and rivers collapsed, the sun and moon collapsed, and everything in the world became nothing. The scenes were so terrifying that the bigwigs watching from afar felt a chill run down their spines. Jiang Yinshui's party had 17 people. Xing Jin Gorge, Sun Daoyan, and Lord Linglong joined forces, but there were only 6 Boundless Realm cultivators. However, the 6 of them were all top Boundless Realm cultivators, and each of them was stronger than the other. Although they were at a disadvantage in numbers, Jiang Yinshui's party could not defeat them in a short time. Rumble, rumble, Xing Jin Gorge and the others were desperate, and no one was holding back. However, they all knew that if this situation did not change, Lin Sun would fall into the most dangerous situation once the battle on the battlefield was over. However, no one could see any hope of changing the situation before their eyes. Jiang Yinshui's party was too powerful. They could not change it at all. When the battle on the battlefield is over, Old Fu and I will try our best to stop those opponents. Mountain Wind, You and Xiao, he will try your best to save Lin Sun and take him out of this world. No matter what, we can't let him die here. Xing Jiangorge's eyes were bloodshot, and he made a decision. At that time, let me and Xiao he resist the enemies, and you leave with Lin Sun. That's settled. I won't listen to your advice anymore. Mountain Wind Path Lord's voice was calm, but his eyes were full of madness. You, Xing Jiangorge was shocked. After a while, he took a deep breath and said, Okay, if you are in trouble, I swear that I will avenge you with my life. The melee was getting more and more intense. In the victory dojo, Lin Sun was also in a rage, his eyes red, and his face cold and terrifying. How could he not understand that the people in Travel Sword Gorge were fighting with their lives against their enemies in order to protect him? Kill! 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 At this moment, Lin Sun seemed to be crazy. His spirit, chi, and spirit were boiling and burning. He and the 5 Tao bodies rushed forward regardless of life and death. This gave Qing Feihong a great deal of pressure, and his expression became more and more solemn. He also knew that the key to this battle was him and Lin Sun. He had to end the battle quickly so that Tiansheng and the others could have a chance to kill Lin Sun. Therefore, he didn't hold back at all. Very soon, both Qing Feihong and Lin Sun were wounded and bleeding profusely. But both of them seemed as if they didn't notice it at all, and they were still fighting intensely. Both of them wanted to defeat the other in the shortest amount of time, causing this battle to become horrifying and bloody. They were fighting with no regard for their lives. Outside the arena, the battle between Xing Jiangorge's group and Jiang Yinshui's group was getting more and more intense. The entire area around the 4 divisions Heaven Pass was being destroyed by terrifying torrents of destruction. It was the 5th day since the world of the Life Lotus had opened. There were still 5 days until the time for the Fate Lotus Dao altar. But at this moment, an unprecedented battle had erupted in front of the 4 symbols Heaven Pass, and it was like the gods were fighting for supremacy here. This was something that no one had expected. What was even more unexpected was that it was Lin Sun, a creation realm cultivator, who made these old guys who had lived for countless years fight desperately. Fortunately, I'm not too late. Suddenly, a loud laugh sounded in the distance. Boom! A red figure flashed across the sky like a cloud of fire and charged into the battlefield. The giant sword in his hand crushed the void, causing Xing Jiangorge to cough up blood and retreat. The tyrannical blow caused many people to change their expressions. The red figure was as handsome as a young man, dressed in a fiery red Taoist robe. His skin was fair, but his eyes were surging with a terrifying golden divine light, and his aura was tyrannical and fierce. Lu Zhongyan, a mighty figure who had gone through 6 great desolation tribulations. There was no doubt that his purpose was the same as Jiang Yinshui's group, to kill Lin Sun. This made the eyes of Jiang Yinshui and the others light up. Then they looked at Sun Daoyan and Divine Lord Ling Long, and there was a trace of haze between their eyebrows. And the faces of Xing Jiangorge and the others were extremely livid. But none of them flinched. In other words, they didn't care about life and death. How could they retreat just because of Lu Zhongyan? If they escape now, they still have a chance of survival. But if they continue like this, I'm afraid they will die here. An old man watching the battle from afar sighed in his heart. As outsiders, they could all see that as the battle continued, the situation of Xing Jiangorge and the others became more and more dangerous. After all, everyone present was in the great boundless realm. There might be a gap in strength between them, but it was not far. And the people in Xing Jiangorge, who were at a disadvantage in numbers, were now heavily surrounded. Huh! Someone is coming again. Suddenly, someone cried out in surprise. In a very distant place, a group of figures moved through the void and were rushing over. The leader was a man in black with fluttering snow-white hair. He held a white bone pagoda in his hand, and his aura was earth-shattering. Lord of Heaven Candle, a terrifying existence from the era of Soul. And the 7 people following closely behind him were all in the great boundless realm. Sure enough, I knew that today's situation would be like this. Xing Jiangorge, the hatred between us and Mind Mountain is not something you can meddle in. As soon as Lord of Heaven Candle and his party arrived, they directly showed their hostility to Lin Sun. All of a sudden, the hearts of the distant spectators were chilled. Who would have thought that Lord of Heaven Candle and his party also came to kill Lin Sun, the descendant of Mind Mountain? Jiang Yinshui, Ying Tiansheng, and the others were overjoyed and felt carefree. The current situation was getting more and more unfavorable to Xingjian Gorge. Seeing that Lord of Heaven Candle and his party were about to attack, suddenly, a loud and clear cry sounded, and a golden bird flew out of the air. On the back of the bird, a woman in red said coldly, "If you don't want to die, leave this place." The woman's skin was whiter than snow, and she was as charming as a young girl. She was in high spirits. It was Su Wanjun, the demoness in the Sea of Fate, who made many powerful people pale at the mention of her. Lord of Heaven Candle's pupils shrank, and the group of people immediately stopped, revealing a look of fear. And the appearance of Su Wanjun caused a complete uproar in the field. A solitary and extraordinary existence like her has actually come as well. Someone muttered while traces of reverence could be seen between his brows. It is said that she has nothing to do with Mind Mountain. Why would she suddenly come to help? There were also people who were puzzled and bewildered. Even Jiang Yinshui, Ying Tiansheng, and the others were shocked. Su Wanjun, they were the clearest about this demoness might. Her sword Dao had long attained an unprecedented level. In the boundless realm, it could even be said to be unparalleled. You want to stand up for the descendant of Mind Mountain? Lord of Heaven Candle's face was gloomy. He was stopped by Su Wanjun before he even entered the battlefield, which made him shocked and angry. I won't repeat what I said a second time. Su Wanjun got up from the back of the bird. Her red dress fluttered in the wind, and her snow-white skin was crystal clear. She was charming, and her charm was above the heavens. The faces of Lord of Heaven Candle and the others became a little ugly. The 8 of them were all in the boundless realm. For example, Lord of Heaven Candle was comparable to Ying Tiansheng, Jiang Yinshui, and the others. But when facing Su Wanjun, they were actually extremely fearful. Su Wanjun, if you interfere in this matter, you will only offend all the forces that have enmity with Mind Mountain. Suddenly, an indifferent voice sounded. A green-robed old man appeared out of thin air, carrying an ancient sword with pine patterns on his back. He had an extraordinary bearing. "True Lord Yellow Dragon is here, too," someone exclaimed, and the expressions of many old monsters in the nearby area changed. True Lord Yellow Dragon, an old monster that had walked in the River of Destiny for at least 9 eras, a terrifying existence with unfathomable strength. "You're not my match." Su Wanjun glanced at True Lord Yellow Dragon. "If I attack together with Lord of Heaven Candle and the others, you will not be able to leave unscathed." The green-robed True Lord Yellow Dragon said indifferently, "Listen to my advice, don't get involved." Su Wanjun waved her hand, and the golden bird beneath her feet suddenly transformed into a sword. It seemed to be forged from divine gold, and it was dazzling. The body of the sword was faintly shrouded with scarlet bloodlight, and it seemed extremely horrifying. The sword's name was Frostblood. It was personally forged by that swordsman who searched the heavens back then, and it had accompanied her all the way until now. I haven't fought for many years, and you all actually don't take my words to heart. Is it because I have killed too few Boundless Realm figures in the past? Su Wanjun sighed lightly. Swoosh! The Frostblood sword disappeared into thin air. True Lord Yellow Dragon's expression changed slightly, and the ancient sword with pine patterns behind him clanged, blocking in front of him. Clang! Amidst the deafening collision sound, True Lord Yellow Dragon's figure swayed, and he retreated several steps, blood surging on his old face like a tide. In front of him, the ancient sword with pine patterns was still buzzing and trembling incessantly. Such an attack made everyone who saw it suck in a cold breath, and their scalps went numb. What kind of terrifying figure was True Lord Yellow Dragon? But he was actually forced back several steps by this sword. Then how powerful was Su Wanjuan's combat strength? Attack together. Otherwise, no one can stop this demoness. True Lord Yellow Dragon shouted loudly. He waved his sleeves, and the ancient sword with pine patterns attacked with a clear cry, shooting out a shocking sword light. Kill! Lord of Heaven, Candle, gritted his teeth, made a decision, and attacked together with the people beside him. Rumble! A battle erupted in this area. The group of old monsters besieged Su Wanjun alone, and all of them used their full strength at the first moment. No one dared to hold back, because they were all clear how tyrannical this demoness who looked as delicate as a young girl's methods were. A very long time ago, she had once slaughtered a group of boundless realm existences in this world of the Life Lotus. Fortunately, true Lord Yellow Dragon was here this time. Otherwise, Lord of Heaven Candle and the others would probably have to consider the consequences of going against Su Wanjun. Chapter 32:05. As soon as the battle broke out, Lord of Heaven Zhu and the others deeply realized how terrifying Su Wanjun was. Her red dress fluttered in the wind, and the frost blood sword flashed around her. Every slash of the sword was indestructible, and all their attacks were easily crushed. As the sword chi intersected, their chi and blood surged, and they almost coughed up blood. Even true immortal Yellow Dragon could only barely withstand Su Wanjun's attacks. For a moment, Su Wanjun became the most dazzling figure on the battlefield. Many people were dumbfounded. How terrifying was it for a person to fight against a group of boundless realm existences alone and still have such heaven-defying power? However, everyone could see that Su Wanjun wouldn't be able to kill true Lord Yellow Dragon and the others in a short time. At the same time, their situation in Travel Sword Gorge was getting more and more dangerous. Although Su Wanjuan's appearance blocked Yellow Dragon, Lord of Heaven Zhu and the others, Jiang Yinshui and Lu Zhongyan, still had the upper hand. Up until now, they had all been injured in the Travel Sword Gorge, and their bodies were soaked in blood. It was conceivable that if Sun Daoyan and Lord Ling Long hadn't taken action, and if Su Wanjun hadn't restrained those old monsters, they would not have been able to hold on until now. Even if they fought desperately, they would be powerless. Old Cho, get ready. Ing Tiansheng suddenly transmitted his voice from the 4 divisions' heavenly pass. In his field of vision, Lin Sun and Qing Feihong were both injured on the battlefield. Both of them were injured, and their injuries were extremely serious. It was hard to believe. After all, Qing Feihong's combat strength had surpassed top figures like Xian Hu and Taoist Master Huyong. But Lin Sun was still able to fight with him until now, which was really shocking. However, Ing Tiansheng could see that both Qing Feihong and Lin Sun could not hold on for too long, which meant that the outcome of this battle was about to be decided. And at that time, as long as Lin Sun could leave the battlefield alive, it would be the time of his death. Good. Chou Fengqi had been paying attention to this scene. He stretched out his hand to remove the pair of enormous hammers on his back and held them in his hands. After that, the vital energy in his body silently circulated as he accumulated strength and waited. Do you see Sword Gorge? Lin Sun has been seriously injured. When he leaves the battlefield, he will die. But do you still have the chance to save him? Jiang Yinshui sneered. Traveling Sword Gorge and the others were covered in blood and wounds. Their eyes were bloodshot, but when they heard Jiang Yinshui's words, their hearts still sank. According to the original plan, Mountain Wind Taoist Lord and Xiao he would rescue Lin Sun. But now, Mountain Wind Taoist Master and Xiao he were both seriously injured. Even if they risked their lives, they might not have a chance to help Lin Sun. What to do? At this moment, everyone in the Travel Sword Gorge couldn't help but feel powerless. At the end of the day, none of them had expected that in order to kill Lin Sun, Jiang Yuanshui and the others who hated Mount Innerheart would not hesitate to launch a large-scale invasion. This time, not only will Lin Sun die, but also you old guys can't escape. Jiang Mingshui said coldly. Of course, there's also you, Sun Daoyan, and Divine Lord Linglong. You want to repay the Master of Heart's kindness? What a joke. Don't worry, even if I die, I'll drag a few of you down with me. Sun Daoyan laughed. Of course. Divine Lord Linglong also said coldly. The expressions of Jiang Yinshui and the others all changed. Just as Jiang Yinshui was about to say something, boom! On the battlefield, the seriously injured Lin Sun actually exploded with unprecedented power, destroying Qing Feihong's body in one blow. Blood and flesh flew everywhere, and Qing Feihong's spirit showed signs of dispersing. This sudden scene caused everyone to be shocked. How is this possible? Almost at the same time, the power of rules emerged from the Victory Dojo and swept away Qing Feihong, who had almost been killed. Lin Sun's figure was teleported out of thin air. This battle had finally come to an end. But just as everyone was shocked by the terror of Lin Sun's attack, a figure had already shot out of the 4-division sky pass, teleporting through the air as it charged at Lin Sun, who had just landed on the ground. Chou Fengqi. He had been waiting for this moment, and he had seized the initiative. Not good. The Xingjiang Gorge and the others all paled. Damn it. Sun Daoyan and Divine Lord Linglong felt their hearts sink. The current situation simply did not allow them to rescue Lin Sun. Okay. At the same time, Ying Tianxing laughed. Jiang Yinshui and the others also laughed. It was like they could already see the bloody scene of Lin Sun's death. In the distance, Su Wanjun, who was fighting with True Monarch Yellow Dragon's group, slightly frowned. She was just about to go and rescue Lin Sun, but a strange look suddenly appeared on her face. Swish! Chou Fengqi's figure was sharp and fierce. Even from a great distance, he swung a pair of massive hammers. Even though Lin Sun was heavily injured, Chou Fengqi did not let down his guard. He attacked with all his strength precisely so that he could kill Lin Sun in a single blow. Boom! As the pair of hammers smashed down, the heavens collapsed and the earth caved in. Berserk power of rules burst forth, suffused with a supreme might that left one in despair. At this moment, Lin Sun slightly raised his head, his eyes as deep and indifferent as an abyss, suffused with chilling, killing intent. He had just finished a fierce battle and was seriously injured. Even as soon as he left the battlefield and stood firm, Chou Fengqi came to kill him. If it were someone else, he would have already been desperate. But Lin Sun seemed to be completely unaware of it. When the pair of massive hammers smashed down from the sky, he stood still in the same place, as if he was scared out of his wits. However, when the pair of giant hammers was only a foot away from Lin Sun, they suddenly stopped there, causing a violent roar and splashing bright Taoist light. That kind of power could smash a boundless realm figure to death. But the pair of giant hammers couldn't move any further. It was as if they were firmly grasped by an invisible hand and imprisoned there. Everyone who saw this scene stared blankly at it. The cold smile on Chou Fengqi's lips froze and his pupils dilated. This blow was like hitting a cotton ball, which made him feel unspeakably uncomfortable. But what kind of cotton ball in this world could withstand his all-out attack? Now it's my turn, Lin Sun said indifferently. He raised his right hand and waved it in the void. Bang! Bang! The pair of giant hammers exploded like paper paste, leaving only the bare handles in Chou Fengqi's hands, and his face changed in an instant. This was his life-bonded Taoist weapon, which he had spent countless efforts to cultivate and temper, and its power was boundless. But now it was smashed by Lin Sun. Chou Fengqi couldn't believe it. Die. However, his reaction was not slow. Almost instinctively, he stabbed the pair of hammers fiercely towards Lin Sun, and his face became ferocious and violent. There's no chance. Lin Sun stood still and suddenly stretched out his hand to grasp. Boom! The pair of hammers shattered inch by inch, shaking Chou Fengqi. His wrists were broken. Lin Sun's grasp directly grasped Chou Fengqi's neck, as if he was grabbing a chick casually. How could you be like this? Chou Fengqi lost his voice, and his face was full of confusion and horror. Bang! His body and spirit exploded in an instant, turning into a pure and thick eternal source power, which appeared in Lin Sun's palm. The whole audience was shocked. A series of changes happened and ended in the blink of an eye. From the end of the battle to the end of Lin Sun's figure, Cho Fengqi broke through the air to kill Lin Sun. But in the blink of an eye, Cho Fengqi's pair of giant hammers exploded, and he was killed on the spot. It was too fast. It caught everyone off guard, and they were all frightened by the bloody and domineering scene of death. How could it be? Ing Tianxing's face changed dramatically, and his eyes almost popped out of his sockets. Cho Fengqi was a top figure in the Boundless Realm, who could keep pace with Hu Yong Demon Lord, but Lin Sun killed him with one blow. And the one who killed him was Lin Sun, who had just experienced a fierce battle and was seriously injured. All this seemed too incredible, and it was hard for people to accept. How could this be? At the same time, the spectators in the distance were also horrified. They couldn't understand how Lin Sun, who was seriously injured and dying, killed Cho Fengqi with one blow. It was hard to believe, even if they saw it with their own eyes. How could it be? Jiang Yinshui, who was in the middle of an intense battle, widened his eyes, shocked by the scene. Earlier, he had even proudly announced that not only would Lin Sun die, but they would also be in trouble at Rose Sword Gorge. But in the next moment, such a bloody scene happened, and it made his old face change completely. At this moment, Lu Zhongyin, true Lord Yellow Dragon, Heaven Illuminating Lord, and the others were also shocked, and they all looked surprised. What was going on? It wasn't just them. Even the heavily injured Rose Sword Gorge, Sun Daoyan, and Divine Lord Ling Long were shocked by this unbelievable scene. It was also at this moment that Qing Fei Hong, who had been defeated in the battle and whose primordial spirit had almost been destroyed, spoke in a hoarse voice. This kid broke through to the Boundless Realm in battle. This sentence was like a bolt of lightning, causing Ing Tiansheng and the others to stiffen, and they were all stunned. Proven Boundless Realm? The spectators in the distance, Jiang Yinshui and the others who were fighting with Rose Sword Gorge, and true Lord Yellow Dragon and the others even further away, all revealed looks of astonishment. Proven Boundless Realm? This was like an impossible thing had happened. Everyone's knowledge was being overturned. Who didn't know that it was impossible for the Great Silence, life-saving tribulation, to appear in the Sea of Destiny? And without the Great Silence, life-saving tribulation, how could there be a chance to prove Boundless Realm? So many epics had passed in the past, but such a thing had never happened. But now, Qing Fei Hong actually said that Lin Sun had broken through to the Boundless Realm in battle. Who dared to believe this? This was even harder to accept than the scene of Lin Sun killing Cho Fengqi. Only Rose Sword Gorge and the others laughed. Although they were seriously injured and the situation was still extremely dangerous, they knew that Lin Sun had succeeded, and only they dared to confirm that this was true. And Su Wanjun, who was fighting with true Lord Yellow Dragon and the others, suddenly thought of the swordsman who had haunted her dreams. Wasn't he also like this back then? Doing what humans couldn't do, breaking the understanding of the myriad worlds. One person was an unparalleled legend, creating a glorious legend that had never existed in the world. Chapter 3206. Everyone was still in shock. Lin Sun turned around and looked at Xingjiang Gorge and the others. Xingjiang Gorge's body was already broken, and blood flowed endlessly. Fu Namli's armor was damaged, and his hair was disheveled. Mountain Wind Daelord's Dao Soldier had already been destroyed, and he was being attacked by several terrifying figures. His aura was already on the verge of becoming chaotic. Shao River. Only his primordial spirit was left. This scene was reflected in Lin Sun's black eyes, turning into burning flames. It was seething anger and hatred. He took a deep breath. Boom! His severely damaged body surged with a dazzling and terrifying light at this moment, shooting straight into the heavens and earth. Accompanying it was an overwhelming killing intent that swept over. Under the astonished gazes of everyone present, the injuries on Lin Sun's body vanished in a thin air in an instant, whereas the aura on his body abruptly skyrocketed and rose, like a divine rainbow that rose up in the sky, breaking through the restraints of the boundless realm with an all-powerful might and charging straight into the boundless realm. An indescribably terrifying aura also spread out from Lin Sun's tall figure, causing the heavens and earth to wail and all Taoists to tremble, as if they were submitting to him. He really reached the boundless realm. It was unknown how many people were absent-minded, shocked there. A miracle that had never happened in the previous eras actually happened today. There was no great silence, lifeless tribulation. But Lin Sun had proven his Tao and broken through in battle, leaping into the boundless realm. How can this be? Ying Tiansheng and the others were shocked and furious, feeling an inexplicable chill in their hearts. Previously, they had thought that it was fortunate that this was the Sea of Destiny, and there was no way for Lin Sun to have the chance to enter the boundless realm. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. But who would have thought that this impossible thing just had to happen at this moment? Thinking about it, Lin Sun could kill Hu Yong, Demon Lord, when he was in the creation realm. And now that he was in the boundless realm, how powerful would he be? Jiang Yinshui and the others were shocked by this scene, and their expressions changed. They had lived for countless years, but today's scene had completely subverted their imagination and understanding, giving them a huge impact. All of you deserve to die. In the distance, Lin Sun's voice was cold, and he enunciated each word as if he was making an oath. Then he moved. With a single step, the heavens and the earth were overturned, the sun and moon dimmed, and the nearby space was thrown into disorder. It seemed to be unable to endure the might that came from his body. Kill. Almost at the same time, in Zhang Shanshui's camp, two boundless realm figures rushed out together and attacked Lin Sun. One of them was a man in luxurious robes, and he held a bronze truncheon in his hand. When he smashed it down with a swing of his hand, it was simply like a grand world had been smashed out. The sun, moon, and stars floated within it while the world flowed within it, and its might was terrifying. The other was a woman in a violet dress. Her fair white hand held up a snow-white divine chain that seemed like the Milky Way in the nine heavens, and it shook apart the heavens and the earth in a fierce and overbearing manner. Both of them were great boundless realm existences. The moment they made a move, it was an all-out attack with the force of a thunderbolt. He saw. Lin Sun suddenly stretched out his hand and twisted it. Boom! That great realm exploded and dissipated. The bronze mace smashed by the man in a splendid robe was easily twisted into a fried dough twist by Lin Sun, and then exploded in a burst of dense explosions. Puff! The man in luxurious robes suffered a backlash and coughed out a mouthful of blood. His face was aghast, and he was just about to dodge. An expanse of sword chi whistled out from Lin Sun's body, and with a rumble, it drowned his entire body. In an instant, the man in luxurious robes was blasted into powder by the torrent of sword chi, and his body and soul were annihilated. Clang! At the same time, the abyssal sword cauldron appeared above Lin Sun, and it blocked the snow-white divine chain that was like the Milky Way that struck towards him. Seeing this, the woman in a violet dress withdrew without hesitation. What was even faster than her movements was Lin Sun's punch that came from afar. Boom! The punch was obscure, shapeless, and indescribable. It surged with the aura of nirvana that caused one's heart to palpitate, but it was completely different from before. When this punch was struck out, the woman in a violet dress felt her vision go black, and all the power of rules in her body was completely suppressed. Her surroundings seemed to have been shackled, causing her to have a feeling of despair that she couldn't escape or avoid. Subsequently, with a bang, the slender and delicate body of the woman in a violet dress exploded in the void, and her soul dispersed. In the blink of an eye, two great boundless realm figures were easily killed on the spot, just like that. Those scenes caused everyone present to go silent, and many people were shocked to the point their scalps went numb. Too strong. At this moment, Lin Sun seemed to have become a completely different person, and he was much stronger than when he was fighting Qin Fei Hong earlier. One must know that in the world of Life Lotus, no matter how intense the battles were, so long as it wasn't a life and death battlefield, it was practically impossible to kill a great boundless realm existence in a one-on-one situation. Because they were all at the same cultivation realm, Even if there was a difference in strength, so long as they fought with their lives on the line, there was a very high chance of escaping from the world of Life Lotus. Generally speaking, those boundless realm existences that perished in the world of Life Lotus were either killed under a siege or met with misfortune in a life and death duel. For example, Jiang Yinshui and the others had a total of over 10 great boundless realm existences, but they hadn't been able to kill Xing Jian Gorge and the others until now. But now, Lin Sun had easily annihilated 2 great boundless realm existences, and they didn't even have the chance to escape. This naturally seemed too terrifying. Swoosh! While everyone was still in shock, Lin Sun's figure had already charged over like a bolt of lightning. Open! With a wave of his sleeve, the abyssal sword cauldron soared into the sky. The expressions of several terrifying figures that were besieging Shao He changed, and they urged their Dao soldiers to resist with all their might. Bang, bang, bang! With a series of explosions, the Dao soldiers were smashed away one after another. The figures that were besieging Shao He were shaken to the point that their qi and blood were in turmoil, and they were forced to retreat. The besieging collapsed just like that. Lin Sun stretched out his hand and grabbed Shao He's spirit. "Senior, leave this to me." Shao He, who had always been taciturn, was so agitated that his lips were trembling at this moment, and he said, "Be careful." Lin Sun nodded and kept Shao He's spirit. His eyes were like lightning, and his aura suddenly rumbled as he launched a killing attack. Boom! Boom! Lin Sun was like a storm that wreaked havoc on a battlefield. Wherever he passed, there was no one who could match him. One after another, the great boundless realm existences were either blown away or frightened away. That unparalleled scene immediately messed up the entire battlefield. Even if Jiang Yinshui and the others attacked with all their might, they couldn't suppress all of this. In a flash, Xing Jian Gorge, Fu Nanli, and Mountain Wind Taoist Lord, who had been trapped in a tight encirclement, were all rescued by Lin Sun. Even Sun Daoyan and Divine Lord Ling Long took the opportunity to meet up with Lin Sun. Although the 2 of them had been besieged before, they weren't seriously injured. Seeing Lin Sun's invincible might and turning the situation around with his own strength, the 2 of them were overwhelmed with emotions. He's just in the boundless realm, but he's already this powerful. The spectators in the distance exclaimed. The power that Lin Sun had displayed was indeed too powerful. It was like a whirlwind that destroyed the encirclement of Jiang Yinshui and the others in one fell swoop, and saved Xing Jian Gorge and the others from the fire and water. All of this made the spectators feel like they were dreaming. To Jiang Yinshui and the others, it was like a shock. Lin Sun was completely different from before. He, who had just reached the boundless realm, already possessed an invincible aura. "Seniors, let me deal with him alone." Lin Sun handed Shao He's spirit to Xing Jian Gorge. Then he stepped into the air and charged toward Jiang Yinshui and the others. From afar, it was as if a supreme ruler had descended to the world and was about to sweep away all. "I don't believe that so many people can't subdue you, you little bastard." Jiang Yinshui's expression was gloomy as he suddenly struck out a diagram of mountains, rivers, suns, and moons in his hand. The diagram spread out in the void and emitted a bright light, rushing out with billions of suns, moons, and stars, rumbling toward Lin Sun. The other 14 greater boundless realm existences also joined forces, each taking out their own Tao weapons and charging toward Lin Sun. Boom! The world was in chaos. The mighty torrent of rule power wrapped in all kinds of Tao weapons, filled with an aura of destruction that could destroy everything, drowning the world. It was terrifying. How could it be ordinary for 15 greater boundless realm existences to join forces? Just looking at this scene from afar was enough to make one feel despair and suffocate. Then, Lin Sun suddenly took a deep breath. His tall figure surged with a terrifying rule power like a landslide and tsunami, and the bright light of the Tao directly turned into a great abyss. It was boundless. It was immeasurably deep. In that instant, it was as if a bloody mouth had opened wide and was about to devour the world. Boom! The various attacks that were vast like a flood were all swallowed by the great abyss of rules released by Lin Sun's body, like a myriad of streams returning to the sea. The eternal Tao weapons that filled it suffered a terrifying crushing and bombardment, wailing violently as if they would break free of control at any time. Not good. Tut. Come back. Those old fellows were so shocked that they immediately used all their strength to resist, and only then did they finally retrieve their respective Tao weapons with great difficulty. And the divine abilities and Tao techniques they released had already been completely crushed and devoured by the great abyss that seemed to be deep and immeasurable. Many old monsters suffered from the backlash and coughed up blood incessantly. Their old faces turned pale, and their brows were also filled with astonishment. A single person had destroyed their joint attack with a single strike. Was this the power that a young man who had just attained the boundless realm should possess? The distant spectators felt their hands and feet go cold as well. Thinking about it, all these changes started when Lin Sun defeated Qing Feihong when he was heavily injured and on the verge of death. Then, he annihilated Chou Fengqi with a single strike. In the blink of an eye, he annihilated two greater boundless realm figures that came to obstruct him. In an instant, he broke the battle situation and rescued Qing's Sword Gorge and the others, and now, under the joint attack of 15 greater boundless realm figures, he even shattered and disintegrated the opponent's attack in one fell swoop. This series of scenes all showed how terrifying the power Lin Sun possessed after attaining the boundless realm. Even those old monsters that had lived for many eras were unable to remain calm at all, because they had never seen an existence like Lin Sun in their entire lives. And Qing's Sword Gorge and the others all laughed, even though their injuries were very heavy, and they looked very miserable and battered. But at this moment, their smiles were so carefree, and their moods were so joyful. Chapter 32:07. Only Sword Gorge and the others were clearly aware that Lin Sun had already transcended the change of era and stepped onto a supreme path, and he wasn't shackled by the great silence tribulation any longer. Only they knew that coming to the Four Symbols Heavenly Pass this time was originally for the sake of allowing Lin Sun to temper himself and make preparations to corroborate the Tao to the boundless realm. And now Lin Sun succeeded. Boom! On the battlefield, after breaking the joint attack of a group of old monsters, Lin Sun didn't waste any time. His figure released infinite power and rushed forward. His body was dazzling, and the power of the rules transformed into all sorts of shocking phenomena that floated around him. Every breath and every move he made had the might of a sovereign descending upon the world and sweeping through the universe. Kill! A man clad in dark green armor shouted as he swung his halberd and slashed out furiously. Whoosh! It seemed like a wisp of light that tore apart the sky, and the halberd was peerlessly sharp and carried boundless energy of the laws. Lin Sun flicked his fingers. Bang! The halberd's blade shattered like paper. On the other hand, Lin Sun had already arrived before the dark green armored man, and he stretched out his hand and slapped out casually. Bang! First, the dark green armor cracked and exploded. Then, this old monster who had gone through 4 great silence lifespan tribulations was directly killed by this palm and turned into ashes. During this period, other old monsters nearby launched attacks at him, but they were all easily broken by Lin Sun. Boom! As the abyssal sword cauldron swept out, a tall figure who could not dodge in time was killed on the spot. The miserable shriek resounded throughout the entire area, causing one's hair to stand on end. Too strong. At this moment, even in the face of a group of old monsters, Lin Sun showed an invincible momentum. Defeating a greater boundless realm was easy, but killing one was harder than ascending to the heavens. But now, in mere moments, the number of boundless realm existences belonging to Jiang Yinshui's camp that had died at his hands had already reached 4. This was already an incomparably serious casualty. In the past, such a bloody matter would only occur when fighting over the Life Lotus Tao altar. At this moment, Jiang Manshui was also provoked, and his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Go! He didn't dare to hesitate any longer. He gritted his teeth and shouted, making the decision to retreat. The situation before them was completely chaotic, and it caused the advantage they occupied earlier to vanish into thin air. And Lin Sun was at his peak. Under such circumstances, choosing to continue fighting was undoubtedly a foolish decision. How could Lin Sun let them escape like this? Go! His black eyes were cold, and his aura exploded at this moment. Boom! 840 million strands of sword chi flashed out from his tall figure, and they were like an ocean of swords that covered the sky and swept through the surroundings. The number of grains of sand in the Ganges River was endless. Every 100,000 strands of sword chi condensed into a sword formation, and they were like numerous worlds of the sword that contained boundless profundities within them. Every 72 sword formations transformed into a peerless restriction that soared through the sky. For a moment, the world was filled with boundless sword intent. This move integrated the profound meaning of Taishian sword scripture and Lin Sun's Tao. And at this moment, everyone went speechless and looked at each other with astonishment. The heavens and the earth had fallen into an atmosphere of great terror and destruction. Whether it was the spectators in Tianxing's group, Xing Jian Gorge's group, or True Lord Yellow Dragon and Su Wanjuan's group who were engaged in an intense battle, they were all stunned. At this moment, they were all deeply stunned by this strike. As far as the eye could see, the sword intent was infinite and boundless. Puff! A patch of blood splashed, and it was instantly drowned by the boundless sword intent. It was an old man that was the closest to Chun Shi. He just turned around and fled less than 3 kilometers away when he was crushed by the sword insight that seemed like a torrent of the world, and he was like a scarlet red wave that was obliterated and vanished. The old man's power of the Tao couldn't stop it at all. He didn't even have time to scream. Then, earth-shaking collision sounded. Screams, roars, the sound of treasures exploding, and the shrill screams before death resounded one after another. In just the blink of an eye, the sword intent that covered the heavens and the earth dissipated. In the blink of an eye, 5 boundless realm figures were slaughtered on the spot, and the others were all injured and bleeding. Even someone as powerful as Jiang Yuanshui was in a sorry state. His face was grim and livid, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Go, go, he roared. Actually, there was no need for him to remind them. Under the stimulation of death, those old fellows who survived all fled in panic like madmen. Without exception, all of them crushed their great Tao fate pearls and fled from the world of Life Lotus at the first possible moment. They didn't dare to hesitate at all for fear that Lin Sun would catch up to them. In just the blink of an eye, Jiang Yuanshui and the other old fellows had vanished. Lin Sun frowned slightly. Then he looked at Yellow Dragon, Heaven Candle, and the others. The expressions of these old fellows changed, and they felt a chill in their hearts. They didn't dare to stay any longer, and they directly retreated and fled towards the distance. Should we chase after them? Su Wanjun looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun shook his head, and then he cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your help, Senior. I will definitely repay such great kindness in the future." I didn't do it to help Heart Mountain. As Su Wanjun spoke, the frost blood sword in her hand had already turned into a golden divine bird with a clang. Let's go. She leaped onto the divine bird, soared into the sky, and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Even her departure seemed so elegant and neat. Lin Sun was slightly stunned. When he just entered the world of Life Lotus, Su Wanjun suddenly appeared, wanted to learn the way to comprehend the law of fate from Xia Ji. But in the end, she seemed to have touched a sad memory during the conversation and left in disappointment. Lin Sun didn't take this matter to heart. But today, Su Wanjun suddenly appeared and stopped Yellow Dragon, Heaven Candle, and the others, which undoubtedly indirectly helped Lin Sun. No matter why she did this, it was already a great kindness for Lin Sun. But Su Wanjun just turned around and left like this, shaking his head. Lin Sun stopped thinking about it and turned to look into the distance. The world was dead silent. Near the Four Guardians' Heaven Pass, there was a scene of destruction, and the air was still filled with the chilling smell of blood. The spectators in the distance stood there like clay statues. Their faces were filled with indescribably complicated emotions. There was shock, bewilderment, and fear. Especially when Lin Sun looked over. Those old guys who had lived for countless years trembled in their hearts and didn't dare to look at him. When Lin Sun looked at the four guardians heaven pass, he saw Ing Tiansheng and the others were extremely gloomy, as if they had lost their parents. Between their brows, there was still shock and astonishment. To them, the scenes from before were simply like a nightmare. First, Qing Fei Hong was suddenly defeated, and his spirit was almost blown up. Then, Chou Fengqi, who took advantage of the opportunity, was directly killed by Lin Sun on the spot. This had already caught people off guard, but as Lin Sun showed his great power and broke through Jiang Yinshui's camp, he saved them from the disaster, besieging the forces in the middle, saving the people of Travel Sword Gorge and the others from their predicament. And in the following battle, he even killed many boundless realm figures by himself. All this made Ing Tiansheng and the others suffer an unprecedented shock. Until now, many of them had not yet woken up from the nightmarish mood. When Lin Sun looked at them, Ing Tiansheng and the others all stiffened and felt uncomfortable all over. But soon, Lin Sun withdrew his gaze and looked at Xing Sword Gorge and the others. All of a sudden, his eyes softened. He cupped his hands and said, "Seniors, I'm sorry to trouble you before." Xing Sword Gorge and the others were already extremely excited, and they all laughed when they heard this. "Look, this kid is still polite to us at this time." Xing Sword Gorge felt helpless. Everyone laughed. Lin Sun also laughed and looked at Sun Daoyin and Lord Linglong. "I have to thank you two seniors for what happened before. If you need my help in the future, just let me know. I won't refuse." Sun Daoyin, who was as tall as a mountain, laughed and said in a deep voice, "Your master has done us a great favor. How can we stand by and do nothing? Since this matter is over, we should leave." The nearby god, Lord Linglong, nodded. Lin Sun said, "If possible, I hope to fight side by side with you two seniors in the world of Life Lotus next time." Next time, Sun Daoyin was stunned. "Yes, I have just broken through this realm and need to meditate for a while. I plan to leave the world of Life Lotus with Xing Sword Gorge and the others now." Lin Sun said frankly. The spectators in the distance, including Ing Tiansheng and the others, were all surprised. This kid wanted to leave now. Did this mean that although he had proved his Tao and broken through, there was something wrong with him, so he didn't dare to stay in the world of Life Lotus anymore? Thinking of this, Ing Tiansheng and the others looked at each other and had different thoughts. At the same time, Sun Daoyin, Lord Linglong, and Xing Sword Gorge's expressions changed slightly. They also realized that something was wrong and didn't ask any more questions. But Lin Sun didn't seem to care and said with a smile, "Seniors, don't worry. They won't dare to do anything now, even if they have the guts. Otherwise," a touch of coldness appeared in his black eyes, "they will be the ones to die." His words made Ing Tiansheng and others look gloomy. Being threatened by Lin Sun in such an above-board manner made them feel embarrassed and frightened. Sun Daoyin said, "Young friend, you should leave now." Lin Sun said, "Seniors, you have already offended those forces that hate our mountain of innermost heart. Why don't you leave now?" Sun Daoyin and Lord Linglong looked at each other with mixed feelings. They didn't expect Lin Sun to be so thoughtful that he was still considering their situation at this time. "We'll listen to young friend Lin," Lord Linglong said softly. Sun Daoyin nodded. Lin Sun smiled and said, "Then let's make a promise to meet in the world of Life Lotus next time." "Okay." Both of them agreed. They talked among themselves and didn't avoid the spectators and Ing Tiansheng and the others in the distance. They seemed calm and composed. But the calmer they were, the more frightened they were. No one dared to move without permission. "I hope to see you again next time I come." Lin Sun raised his head slightly and looked at Ing Tiansheng and the others in the distance. His voice was indifferent, but the meaning in his words was chilling. Suddenly, Ing Tiansheng and the others' hearts sank. Chapter 3208. Soon, under everyone's gaze, Lin Sun, Xing Jian Gorge, and the others left the world of Life Lotus. From beginning to end, no one tried to stop them. Many people even felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Ing Tiansheng and the others' hearts were heavy. They couldn't ignore Lin Sun's threat before he left. On the same day, the news about Lin Sun proving himself to the boundless realm and slaughtering his enemies spread, causing a stir in the world of Life Lotus. Proving himself to the boundless realm in the battle of victory and defeat. This was the most unbelievable news. Such an inconceivable thing had never occurred in the past eras. But Lin Sun was the only one. The owner of the Heart Core said that when the Lotus appeared, it would overturn everything in the world. Now it seems that we all underestimated the owner of the Heart Core. Someone sighed. A creation realm cultivator could kill Hu Yong, Demon Lord. And now he created a miracle in the impossible by proving himself to the boundless realm. Without a doubt, this had overturned everything they knew. Qing Feihong suffered a crushing defeat. Chou Fengqi was killed, and 9 figures of the boundless realm perished in Jiang Yinshui's camp. And all of this was actually done by Lin Sun alone. How powerful must his combat strength be now? I'm afraid that even giants like Jiang Yinshui and Ing Tiansheng are no match for him. It's said that after he proved himself to be a boundless realm cultivator, there seemed to be a problem with his cultivation. That's why he left the world of Life Lotus immediately. I wonder if it's true. Perhaps we'll know the answer when the next Life Lotus world's world struggle begins. Holy Mountain of Spiritual Martial Realm. Whoosh, whoosh. Lin Sun and the others descended from the sky. Rin Futian and the other cultivators of Yuan Church and Spirit Church, as well as Zhong Xiao and the other successors of the Heart Core, were all alarmed and went to greet them at once. Brother Xing, what happened? Why did you come back so early? Hey, how did you suffer such serious injuries? Everyone was surprised to see Lin Sun, Xing Jian Gorge, and Fu Nanli. Don't make a fuss. No one died. Why are you so nervous? Xing Jian Gorge shook his head with a smile and said to Lin Sun, Go cultivate first. Old Fu and I will explain. Lin Sun nodded. Zhong Xiao, Ruo Su, and the others originally had a lot of questions to ask, but seeing this, they restrained themselves. They all smiled and asked Lin Sun to quickly go into closed-door cultivation. Until Lin Sun's figure disappeared, people all looked at Sword Gorge and others. Xing Jian Gorge did not hide anything and told him everything that happened in the world of the Life Lotus. In next to no time, a stir arose in the surroundings. Lin Sun verified the boundless realm. Rin Futian and the other cultivators from the Yuan sect and the Ling sect were shocked. This was the Sea of Destiny. And to be able to corroborate the boundless realm in the Life Lotus world, this was already equivalent to creating an unprecedented miracle. Zhong Xiao, Ruo Su, and the other successors of Feng Xiyuan were pleasantly surprised as well. They looked at each other and could see the excitement and joy in each other's eyes. Boundless realm. Amongst all the successors of Mount Fengsuan, this was one of kind. Xinjiang Gorge and Fu Nanli were also very happy. Even though they were heavily injured, their hearts still surged with excitement when they recalled the scenes that occurred before the 4 symbols heaven pass. Except they didn't. The reason why they returned early was also because of Lin Sun. What happened to Lin Sun that he needed to meditate for a period of time? Xinjiang Gorge and the others did not know either. All they could do now was wait. In the cave abode, the moment he sat down cross-legged, the aura on Lin Sun's body suddenly fell from boundless realm to grand completion creation realm level all at once. His face became pale and translucent, and blood dripped from the corners of his lips. The feeling of breaking through forcefully doesn't work. He reached out to grab a handful of divine medicine and stuffed it into his mouth as he refined it. In his mind, he recalled the scene of him breaking through on the battlefield of the 4 symbols heaven pass. At that time, he was burning with anger. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was to defeat Qing Feihong in the shortest time possible. Perhaps it was because he was stimulated by the boundless anger, or perhaps it was because in the previous battle, his potential was completely released. It was also at that time that Lin Sun felt an extremely strong opportunity to verify his Tao. Although he was seriously injured at that time, when he sensed this opportunity to verify his Tao, he did not hesitate to try to break through. In the end, although he succeeded in breaking through the barrier and made his Tao achieve a fundamental breakthrough and transformation, it was also at that time that Lin Sun noticed a problem. His realm was very unstable. As if lacking a kind of foundation support, it seemed that he would fall from the boundless realm at any time and be beaten back to his original state. But the situation at that time made Lin Sun unable to care about this. It was not until he defeated Qing Fei Hong, killed Chou Fengqi, and defeated Jiang Yinshui and others that Lin Sun found that his Tao had fallen back to the creation realm. How could he dare to stay any longer? The reason why my Tao fluctuates between high and low must be that there is a flaw in my Tao when I'm verifying my Tao. If I want to solve this problem, I should find it for myself. Lin Sun was lost in thought. At this moment, he was extremely calm, and he could also recall all the specific details of the battle at that time. At that time, when I was fighting with Qing Fei Hong, all my thoughts were immersed in a wonderful battle situation. It was also at that time that my strength changed subtly. After a long time, Lin Sun's eyes lit up. By the way, the profound meaning of nirvana. At that time, the profound meaning of nirvana was like a furnace, smelting all the Tao he had mastered, such as the creation rule, the 5 sequences of the ultimate, the time rule, and so on. This was something Lin Sun had never thought about before. In his view, the nirvana, creation rule, the 5 sequences of the ultimate, and the time rule were all supreme Tao. They were so powerful that there was no possibility of them being refined and integrated. But what happened at that time proved that with the power of the profound meaning of nirvana, it was possible to completely integrate the supreme Tao. And such integration indirectly promoted the profound meaning of nirvana to achieve a new change. In this way, the reason why I haven't broken through the realm in the past few years is that the power of Tao has not really integrated into one. Lin Sun vaguely understood. The Tao was flawed, so it was naturally not perfect, and it was naturally difficult to achieve a breakthrough in one's realm. It was not wrong for him to always put the opportunity to prove the Tao in battle. After all, it was in the battle with Qing Fei Hong that he realized this point. Unfortunately, the situation at that time was too tense and serious, and there was no time for him to realize the real integration of the Tao. So after breaking through the realm by force, it left behind this. It was a disadvantage. Fortunately, the power of Tao can be made up for, unlike the foundation of Tao. Once there is a defect, it is difficult to reshape its origin. Lin Sun became relaxed. He had found the problem and knew how to solve it. The rest was nothing more than a matter of spending time to do it. Exhaling a long, turbid breath, Lin Sun got rid of distracting thoughts. After recovering his strength, he began to concentrate on refining his Tao with the profound meaning of nirvana. Over the years, the Tao rules he had mastered were not only those supreme Tao. For example, every kind of divine level order he refined was also a complete kind of rule power, each with its own magic. For example, among the eternal source power of his enemies that he refined with the 5th sequence of the ultimate, there were also various kinds of rule power that belonged to the eternal figures. There were more than 100 types of rule-bending powers. Furthermore, there were countless others that he had yet to refine. For example, after killing Zija Wuji, Azure Dragon Yu, Heartpot, and other boundless realm existences, Lin Sun had yet to refine their eternal source energy. This time, Lin Sun planned to refine all these rule powers in one go and integrate them into the profound meaning of nirvana, and finally realize the true all Tao return to one. Time passed, and half a month passed in a hurry. On this day, the Tao lotus floating on the sea of destiny suddenly emitted a myriad of rays of light, producing an earth-shattering roar. Immediately after, many terrifying figures came out of the Tao lotus. This scene was witnessed by Xingjian Gorge and the others on Tao seeking Divine Mountain. They knew that the 5th Tao competition had ended. However, they could not guess which force had won in the end, and which three people had the opportunity to go to the ruins of Tao. I wonder when the Tao Lotus will appear again. Xing Jian Gorge murmured. Based on past experience, it will be at least 10 years, and at most 20 to 30 years. Fu Nanli smiled. I'm also looking forward to the next time we fight our way into the world of Life Lotus. Xing Jian Gorge thought for a moment and asked, Have you been in seclusion these days? Fu Nanli said softly, I know what you're worried about. Don't worry, with Lin Sun's current cultivation and means, he should be able to solve his own problems. Moreover, even if you're worried, we old guys can't help you anymore. Xing Jian Gorge nodded and suddenly smiled. When we left the world of Life Lotus, I told Mountain Wind Tao Lord and Xiao he to bring Old Bai Zhe and Olmu next time. With the addition of Divine Lord Ling Long and Sun Daoyan, we will have enough power to occupy a heaven pass. He was also looking forward to it. Year after year passed. Tao-seeking Divine Mountain was as tranquil as ever, and the entire realm of spiritual martial was calm. Time passed in this peaceful atmosphere. On the 10th year of Lin Sun's seclusion, in the cave abode, Lin Sun, who had been meditating in silence, suddenly surged with a wave of powerful aura, and it was like a tide that produced a perfect and wonderful rhythm. Moreover, his cultivation also underwent an incredible change. He rushed up like a divine rainbow, and in just a few blinks of an eye, he broke through from the creation realm. After meditating for 10 years, Lin Sun entered the boundless realm again. Chapter 3209. In the abode, Lin Sun opened his eyes, and he had a transcendent bearing. It was the bearing of experiencing the vicissitudes of the world and transcending the change of epochs. It was the charm that belonged to the boundless realm. So the true boundless realm is like this. Lin Sun felt the new changes in his body, and a trace of satisfaction couldn't help but appear on the corners of his mouth. These 10 years of meditation allowed him to completely fuse the power of rules he grasped into the profundity of nirvana, and it became a part of the profundity of nirvana. And the profundity of nirvana also underwent a qualitative transformation. Compared to the past, the profundity of nirvana had the most ancient and primitive power of life, a taboo power that could cause any life to undergo nirvana. Nirvana meant transformation and rebirth. It was like a phoenix being reborn from the flames, or like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon. If it was merely so, it wouldn't be considered a taboo. Most importantly, the current profundity of nirvana could undergo nirvana and reconstruction of the power of rules, no matter if it was damaged or not. As long as it was reconstructed with the profundity of nirvana, it could produce an unbelievable transformation. Similarly, the profundity of nirvana could also reconstruct and rebirth any power that had the aura of life. For example, it could bring the fallen back to life. This was the true taboo power that belonged to the profundity of nirvana. Along with the transformation of the profundity of nirvana, it also allowed Lin Sun's cultivation to smoothly enter the boundless realm. Moreover, it wasn't as flawed as before. On the contrary, it was these 10 years of solitary cultivation that allowed Lin Sun to forge an extremely solid foundation of the boundless realm. It was much stronger than when he forcefully proved his Tao in the world of his soul. All the power of rules in his body used nirvana as the furnace, and there was no distinction between them. As long as he was willing, he could display the profundity and power of other rules with a single thought. The boundless realm, unfettered and unrestrained. It could traverse numerous eras. This realm is the end of the eternal path towards the Tao, and it's the final realm of all the grand Taos in the world. Lin Sun realized a problem. When one reached this realm, the great desolation, fateless tribulation wasn't the key to improving one's strength. Instead, it would attract this tribulation when one's strength became stronger and stronger. For example, the great desolation, fateless tribulation wouldn't appear in the ocean of destiny. But this didn't mean that those boundless realm existences couldn't improve their strength. In other words, regardless of whether he overcame the deathless tribulation or not, it wouldn't affect the improvement of his cultivation at all. On the other hand, the reason those old fellows who'd overcome numerous deathless tribulations were still able to survive until now was because their combat strength was sufficiently formidable, and it was sufficient for them to survive numerous tribulations. On the contrary, going through the great silence, lifeless tribulation wasn't entirely a bad thing. At the very least, one's combat strength could be further tempered during the tribulation. Simply speaking, overcoming the tribulation was a tempering of life and death, yet it wasn't the only path to improve one's cultivation. Understanding these, Lin Sun also finally understood why a lesser boundless realm figure like Zhu Wutian would have such heaven-defying combat strength. He also understood why Zhi Wuji, who had only undergone 4 great silence lifeless tribulations, could be stronger than Azure Dragon Yu, an old fellow who had undergone 5 great silence lifeless tribulations. At the end of the day, the more tribulations one underwent, the more powerful one's combat strength was, but it wasn't the only criterion. With my current cultivation, I should be in the early stages of this state. Lin Sun pondered. He was naturally clearly aware that his path towards the Tao was different from others at the same realm of cultivation. And when he had just stepped onto the boundless Tao path, it also meant that he still had a lot of room for improvement. For example, the middle stage, late stage, and even perfection of this realm. However, Lin Sun was very doubtful if this realm had a true perfection. After all, the boundless realm was the ultimate realm of the eternal Tao path, the final realm of all great Taos. If one cultivated to the perfection of this realm, wouldn't it mean that one was already standing at the apex of the great Taos of the heavens? But cultivating until now, Lin Sun had never seen any boundless realm figure truly reach the perfection of this realm. This realm definitely hides the ultimate secret. As he pondered, Lin Sun had already stood up and walked out of the cave abode. 10 years had passed, and Tao-seeking Divine Mountain was as peaceful as before. When they received the news of Lin Sun coming out of seclusion, Xing Jinxia and Fu Nanli rushed over at the first moment, followed closely by Zhong Xiu, Ruo Su, and the other successors of Feng Siyuan. Originally, Xing Jinxia was still a little worried about Lin Sun, but when he saw Lin Sun, his pupils constricted. A formless pressure emanated from Lin Sun's body. Although it was extremely faint, it caused Xing Jinxia's body to tighten abruptly, and an uncontrollable pressure arose in his heart. It was as if he was facing a ruler of this realm. But very quickly, the formless pressure vanished as if it had never appeared. Looking at Lin Sun again, he was extraordinary, untainted, and without the slightest bit of pressure. He was like a pine tree in a mountain stream, a natural sculpture. You no longer worry? Xing Jinxia couldn't help but ask. Lin Sun smiled and nodded. It's nothing serious to begin with. Instantly, Fu Nanli and Ren Futian, who were beside him, understood that Lin Sun's problem had been completely resolved during these 10 years of seclusion. Zhong Xiu, Ruo Su, and the others smiled as well. Although they didn't know what had happened to Lin Sun, it was very obvious that he was no longer in danger. Come, let's go and have some wine. Xing Jinxia waved his hand and said boldly. On that day, Tao-seeking Divine Mountain became lively. Many senior brothers and sisters who were in seclusion also heard the news and came over. They drank and chatted with Lin Sun, talked about worldly affairs, and discussed the great way together. While chatting, Lin Sun also learned about the cultivation of his senior brothers and sisters. He knew that in these years, their cultivation had more or less improved, and he was very happy. And like Tai Xian, Yin Ji, Yu Beihai, and martial uncle Kong Ju, their cultivation had also advanced by leaps and bounds in these years, and they had made breakthroughs one after another. This made Lin Sun feel more and more at ease. Senior, since ancient times, have there been any cultivators who have stepped into the boundless realm who have reached the level of perfection? Lin Sun took the opportunity of drinking and chatting to ask Xing Jinxia and the others for advice. What is boundless? It's endless. In the past eras, there were many supreme giants of this realm who diligently pursued the path of perfection, but without exception, they all failed to reach this level. Xing Jinxia drank a cup of wine and said with emotion, "This is the ultimate realm, and also the end of the world's great way. However, there are almost none who can really reach this level of perfection." "Almost none," Lin Sun said. "That's right," Fu Nanli said softly. "According to the rumors, if there are really people in this world who have reached perfection in this realm, then only a few people can do it." "Who?" Lin Sun's heart shook, and he revealed a curious expression. "One is naturally the absolute beginning dominator, who is regarded as the mastermind behind the calamity of an era," Fu Nanli said. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed slightly, and he nodded. Indeed, the absolute beginning dominator could borrow the power of the Great Silence. He could even use the absolute beginning rule to transform the ruins of creation, one of the four great ruins of God, into a cage. This wasn't something an ordinary boundless realm cultivator could do. One is a supreme legend who walked out of the immortal martial era. His name is like the Tao, and it can't be described with words. People call him Talisman Emperor. This dominator-like legendary figure once suppressed the path of cultivation for 9 years by himself, and he stepped onto an unprecedented supreme path. Supposedly, his master came from Oracle Mountain. However, Oracle Mountain vanished a very long time ago, and it's to the extent that even some boundless realm existences have practically never heard of Oracle Mountain. When Fu Nanli spoke up to hear, a figure couldn't help but appear in Lin Sun's mind. He wore green clothes that were like jade, carried an ancient sword on his back, and strolled through the annals of an era. He'd once established the divine city of creation by himself. It was definitely him, the ancestor of Chun Linkong, Chun Shi. Besides these two people, there's another mysterious swordsman. When he spoke up to hear, a wisp of a dazed expression appeared between Fu Nanli's brows. He's a peerless overlord in the Sword Tao. He's unyielding, and peerless in his sharpness. On the other hand, he's ethereal, carefree, open-minded, and mysterious to the extreme. No one knows his origins, but supposedly he once suppressed the heavens with a single sword strike, and his strength of the Sword Tao reigned above numerous eras. Until now, no one has surpassed him. He's like the one and only overlord in the Sword Tao. Some call him Sword Master, some call him Sword Emperor, and some give him numerous peerlessly dazzling titles. But after he ascended to the supreme way, he called himself Swordsman. When he spoke up to hear, Fu Nanli couldn't help sighing with admiration and longing. Lin Sun was stunned when he heard this. A traveler was a person who drifted in a foreign land. A swordsman was a traveler who drifted on the Sword Tao. Such a great swordsman who suppressed the heavens with a sword and stood above many eras actually called himself swordsman. What kind of lonely state of mind did he have? The Sword Tao was like a journey against the tide, while life was like a passerby. At this time, Lin Sun thought of a person. That person once left 2 whetstones. One was engraved with nurturing the heart like jade, and the other was engraved with sharpening the heart like a blade. That person once pursued the Sword Tao, fought for reincarnation, and walked in the changing of eras. That person once sighed with emotion that it was too lonely to have an opponent in the world. That person once entered the ruins of wonderful Tao and chose nirvana samsara to start anew. He wanted to take a different path and walk on the road of Tao again. The reason was that he admitted that he couldn't find a way to break through and transcend again. Until now, the pair of whetstones he left behind was still treasured by Lin Sun and carried with him. However, could the swordsman senior Fu Nanli spoke of be him? Lin Sun didn't dare to be sure. If there are people in this world who have attained the level of perfection in the boundless realm, then there's surely the absolute beginning dominator, Talisman Emperor, and that swordsman. Only figures like them possess such resources and might. Fu Nanli concluded. There are no others? Lin Sun asked. Perhaps, but they're definitely not in the Sea of Destiny, said Fu Nanli. There were rumors in the past that the ruins of wonderful Tao had the opportunity to step foot into the level of perfection in the boundless realm. Because only the ruins of wonderful Tao have the chaotic Tao fruit, and a boundless realm figure can grasp a complete law of chaos that was born from the innate world after refining a chaotic Tao fruit. Xing Jinxia said, and the more chaotic Tao fruits one refines, the more hope one has to realize a true breakthrough and transcendence in the ultimate realm. When he spoke up to hear, he smiled and shrugged. Of course, it's only a rumor. Chapter 32:10. Lin Sun had heard about the fruit of Tao from Ming Shanying. He knew that it was a kind of supreme creation that only existed in the ruins of wonderful Tao. Looks like only by reaching the ruins of Tao can I truly unravel the ultimate mystery of the boundless realm. Lin Sun murmured to himself. After the banquet ended, Lin Sun returned to his cave abode and meditated. Right now, he had only just reached the boundless realm and belonged to the early stages. He still had many cultivation matters to do, such as consolidating his cultivation and tempering his body and spirit. More importantly, a brand new realm meant brand new combat power. He had to familiarize and control it as soon as possible. Only then could he unleash his full power in battle. Another 10 years passed in a flash. On this day, the Sea of Destiny changed. The sixth great Tao Lotus appeared. It's finally here. Xing Jinxiao walked out of his cave abode, his eyes filled with anticipation. Not far away, Fu Nanli also walked out. This time, they only planned to bring Lin Sun to the world of the Life Lotus. As for Gu Yueshi, Xuanhuaijia, and Shui Yi, they stayed behind to oversee Tao seeking Divine Mountain with Renfutian. The reason they made such a change was because they had made too many enemies in the world of the Life Lotus. Apart from the shaman and Buddhist epics, there was also the devil epics as well as those enemies who hated Minuscule Mountain. Under such circumstances, it was inappropriate to bring Gu Yueshi and the other two lesser boundless realms along. Young friend Lin, are you ready? Xing Jinxia noticed Lin Sun's figure flying over from afar. Lin Sun nodded with a smile. All right, then let's go. Xing Jinxia could no longer wait. He soared into the air with Fu Nanli and Lin Sun, heading towards the great Tao Lotus in the Sea of Destiny. On Tao, seeking Divine Mountain, the cultivators of the Yuan Church and Spirit Church, as well as the descendants of Minuscule Mountain, watched silently and sent them off. On the Sea of Destiny, like before, terrifying figures from other epochs began to appear. Divine rainbows fell like rain, dense and dazzling. Look, that's Lin Sun. Last time in the world of the Life Lotus, he was the one who reached the boundless realm and killed many greater boundless realm existences. The appearance of Lin Sun, Xing Jinxia, and Fu Nanli immediately attracted many gazes. Lin Sun, in particular, became the focus of everyone's attention. What happened in the Life Lotus world last time caused a great sensation and made Lin Sun remembered by all the terrifying existences. Now that he appeared, who wouldn't pay attention to him? Of course, there are also gazes filled with hatred and coldness. For example, a group of terrifying figures from the Buddha era, led by Du Feng, and a group of people from the Witch era, led by Wang Xinghai. At the same time, Lin Sun also noticed in Tianshang, Zhu Tianjun, and Yellow Dragon. When Lin looked at them, these enemies did not hide the killing intent in their eyes. Lin Sun directly ignored it. Once he entered the world of the Life Lotus, he would naturally settle the scores with all his enemies. Soon, Lin Sun saw Mountain Wind Taoist Master and Xiao He. Beside them, there was a skinny man in a black robe and an old man with messy hair and beard. The former was Mo Bai Zhe, the latter was Mu Chanyan. They were Old Bai Zhe and Old Mu that Xing Jian Gorge mentioned. Now that they met on the ocean of destiny, they nodded at each other from afar but did not talk much. Then, Lin Sun saw Divine Lord Ling Long and Sun Daoyan. They smiled at each other. Let's go. Xing Jian Gorge and the others moved. They only had 10 breaths of time to enter the Life Lotus world. Be it them or the other cultivators, no one dared to waste time. 10 breaths later, the 9 petals of the Tao Life Lotus closed, and the raging ocean of destiny calmed down. There are more old fellows participating in the battle of the Great Path this time. There are 316 of them. On Tao seeking Divine Mountain, Ren Futian was moved. Don't worry. The current Lin Sun is no longer the same as before. Gu Yu smiled. They were all looking forward to Lin Sun's operation. In the Life Lotus world, Buzz, Lin Sun's figure appeared with a ripple in the void. After more than 20 years, I'm back here. The world is the same, but the people are different. Lin Sun glanced around and sighed with emotion in his heart. He walked forward with his hands behind his back. In less than half a day, he met up with Xing Jiangorge and Fu Nanli. I've agreed with the Mountain Wind Taoist Lord and the others that we'll meet at the 4 heavenly gates when we reach the Life Lotus world. We can go there directly, Xing Jiangorge said. The 4 heavenly gates. Lin Sun was stunned for a moment and then nodded with a smile. He wondered if he would meet Ying Tiansheng and the others again in Xixiang Heaven Pass this time. For hours later, the lofty silhouette of the 4 heavenly gates appeared in the distance. When Lin Sun's group arrived, they saw that there were already people guarding the 4 heavenly gates, but it wasn't Ying Tiansheng and the others. Lin Sun couldn't help but feel a little regretful. It's Guan Qinqiu's group from the Dao era. Xing Jiangorge immediately recognized the force guarding the 4 heavenly gates. Lin Sun, why is this guy at the 4 heavenly gates again? Everyone be careful. Many old monsters were scattered around the 4 heavenly gates. When they noticed Lin Sun's group, there was a commotion. Many old monsters' eyes were faintly filled with vigilance and alertness. The last time Lin Sun came here, he was still in the creation realm. He was ignored by all the old monsters present, as if he was an ant walking into a group of crocodiles. But now it was completely different. Xing Jiangorge, do you also want to take the pass? Suddenly, a voice came from the 4 heavenly gates. The speaker was an old man with a ruddy face and white hair, holding a jasper ruler. Although he spoke to Xing Jiangorge, he looked at Lin Sun with a serious expression. My young friend Lin, this is Guan Qinqiu, an old guy who has gone through 7 great silence fatality tests. Xing Jiangorge said with a smile. Old Guan, don't worry. We're here just to wait for someone. When they come, we'll leave. Guan Qinqiu seemed to be relaxed and said, I don't think you'll do such a stupid thing. Xing Jiangorge smiled and said no more. He and Guan Qinqiu had no grievances, so he naturally wouldn't take action at this moment. As time went by, more and more figures appeared near the 4 heavenly gates. But when they saw Lin Sun and others, they couldn't help but stay away from them. My young friend Lin, do you believe that the news that we appeared in front of the 4 heavenly gates has been spread out by those old guys here? Suddenly, Xing Jiangorge transmitted his voice to Lin Sun. So, in the next time, it's very likely that enemies will come to kill us. Lin Sun asked. Xing Jiangorge thought for a moment and said, It depends on whether the enemy is bold enough. After all, you killed a lot of Boundless Realm people last time. Now whoever wants to deal with us has to think about the consequences. Lin Sun said with a smile, Even if they don't come, let's go to find them. Xing Jiangorge also laughed. That's what I want. As they conversed, Fu Nanli suddenly said, We've been waiting for almost 4 hours. Logically speaking, even if we were teleported to the furthest place from the 4 divine gates after entering the world of the Life Lotus, with the speed of the Mountain Wind Dowlord and the others, they should already be here. Xing Jiangorge frowned. Do you suspect that some kind of accident has happened? It's possible, Fu Nanli said. At this time, Guan Qinqiu of the 4 heavenly gates suddenly said, Xing Jiangorge, I just received a message from a good friend saying that a great battle broke out not far from the 5 elements heavenly gates. Your good friend Mountain Wind, Taoist Master, and others are being besieged by Ying Tianqing's camp. If you go there now, you might be able to save them in time. Xing Jiangorge's face changed slightly. He took a deep breath and cupped his hands to Guan Qinqiu. Old Guan, thank you. After saying that, Lin Sun, and Fu Nanli set off at once and hurried to the 5 elements heavenly gates. Let's go and have a look. All right, I'm also very curious about how strong Lin Sun is. Many old monsters in the nearby area also left and followed them to the 5 elements heavenly gates. For a moment, more than half of the practitioners in front of the 4 heavenly gates were killed. Seeing all this, Guan Qinqiu couldn't help laughing and said in his heart, Speaking of which, I have to thank you, Xingjian Gorge. If it weren't for you, how could most of the competitors in front of the four heavenly gates be lured away? Guan Qinxiu and the others around him also felt much more relaxed. This was killing two birds with one stone. Not only did Xingjian Gorge owe them a favor, but he also eased the situation in front of the four heavenly gates. Half an hour later, Lin Sun and the others could already see the five elements heavenly gates in the distance. This gate was built on a vast ocean, like a huge island floating in the middle of the ocean. At this moment, a world-shaking battle was taking place on the ocean. Rumble, waves surged and rose into the air. All kinds of divine weapons danced and collided, and all kinds of peerless divine abilities exploded, throwing the world into chaos. On one side were the Mountain Wind Pathmaster, Xiao He, Mo Bays, and Mu Changyan. Sun Daoyan and Godlord Linglong were also there, fighting alongside the Mountain Wind Pathmaster and the others. On the other side were Ying Tiansheng and a dozen other terrifying existences from the Devil Era, as well as 7 or 8 old monsters like Heaven Illumination Lord. The battle was extremely bitter. The Mountain Wind Pathmaster and the others were completely surrounded, and all of them were injured. They were in a dangerous situation. The faces of Xingjian Gorge and the others darkened when they saw this. This was only the first day they entered the world of the Life Lotus, but the Mountain Wind Pathmaster and the others were already surrounded by enemies. This was completely beyond their imagination. This obviously showed that after they experienced the battle within the world of Life Lotus that day, their enemies had clearly planned this since a long time ago, and they'd made sufficient preparations. In fact, Ying Tiansheng and the others had probably colluded with Heaven Illumination Lord and the others long ago. Haha. Fortunately, we're not too late. Otherwise, we would have missed today's grand event. Just as Lin Sun and the others arrived, a thunderous laughter suddenly resounded between heaven and earth. Then, another group of terrifying figures rushed out and charged toward the Mountain Wind Pathmaster and the others together with Ying Tiansheng and the others. The situation was getting more and more dangerous. The faces of Lin Sun, Xingjian Gorge, and Fu Nanli had completely darkened.